Hello everybody, welcome to Sandown. It is round number 9 of the 2025 ASR Supercars Championship and it's mini-enduro time. We up the kilometres but we keep the single driver format, so it becomes a bit of a torture test. 250 kilometres of racing around the fabled home of horsepower, and with it tagged along at the very end of it for the winner is 300 magnificent championship points. A very, very useful bonus for all that are seeking to advance their position in the standings. Well, there's one and ahead of the field that's got a near 300-point lead at the moment. Benjamin Roddy Rhodes, can he be stopped, is the question tonight.
That is the question. Good evening to everyone watching along at home, or good morning, or good afternoon, or good wherever it is for you. And yes, Will Devonish comes in tonight with a 300, actually slightly over 300 point championship lead over Luke Speck, who is somebody who we keeps refusing to insist that he's actually been competitive this year, despite the fact that the points indicate that he is. Kurt Stenberg is right behind as well, and Stenny is the one we would put to be on the charge. He is also coming into this, into the back end of the season with a 0-point drop round, which will make the difference in his battle with Will. But he's got a lot of work to do, and it starts tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the one that you really want to get under your belt. I mean, a lot of the races that have been in play so far, there's been a couple of sprints, and there's been a couple of the short and long format. We've already had one slightly longer distance format, which was at Townsville 2 rounds ago. So the drivers are starting to be prepared. That was the first one in the chain, because Townsville was a 180 or 200 kilometre race, somewhere in that ballpark. Then the next thing is Sandown, you attack on another 50, 60 kilometres. And then, of course, Bathurst to come in 2 rounds' time, where we get up to 300 kilometres at the distance, all in the single driver format. And they're the ones that pay the really big points. So you can grab a win there, you are well on your way, and in the deficit the difference in terms of first to second place is quite a lot compared to what it normally is if you're going from first to second in some of these shorter race formats. So definitely one you want to do well in for all 3 of these mini-enduros, I guess is what we are calling them. So 18 cars tonight, couple short of a few drivers that are missing out on proceedings here this weekend. But Roddy, let's just get down to business. Let's get straight into it. Let's have a look at this track. On the calendar every single year in ASR since 2018. It is a blast from the past, this one, because it was a 250k race the very first time that ASR raced here. Back then it was AMS Oz in 2018, and it hasn't changed very much apart from Turn 6.
No, the only change we've had in the years gone by is Turn 6. Turn 6 itself has actually stayed the same. It's just the runoff has changed, and we've talked to plenty of drivers, and I know I can actually lean a little bit into you're talking with a guy that races a V8 powered car, not a supercar, but a V8 powered car last weekend, and he's mentioned, and sim racers have felt this as well, that the changes at Turn 6, despite being a safety measure, does change your feel on how you can drive through that sector. It does give you a little bit more wiggle room to make a mistake, and therefore you can push just that little bit harder with that room to work with. But the base layout has not changed since about the 1990s, I believe, was when it got when most of these corners got reprofiled. That was back when the international layout was still a thing. And great little track Sandown. 2 nice big long straights that really make the runs out of turn 12 and turn 4. They make the difference, but also the 6, 7, 8, 9 run. Very easy to overdrive through there, and very easy to throw away any time you make anywhere else on the track. And even then, we've seen turns 11 and 12, it can be pretty deadly. Turns 2 and 3, we saw this IRL last weekend, also pretty deadly.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that is very distinctly Sandown is have a look at Sector 2 there, from the exit of Turn 4 through a nothing corner Turn 5 and into the braking zone approach at turn number 6. So you'll find that a lot of drivers will sort of be very, very close in terms of their sector splits in Sector 2, but all of it, gains and losses, is going to be driven by how well you get off of Turn 4 and how far you get into the braking zone at Turn 6. If you go a little bit too far past the sector marker, you might end up just bowling a little bit wide at Turn 6 and 7. If you go a little bit too early, you might be a little bit sort of a bit too timid, and you might give away a bit of time on the other side. So it's a fine balance point there, heading up the hill into a 260 odd kilometre an hour approach to turn number 6. But corner speeds through turn number 4 will be very critical to deciding what that little sector, it's a very unique sector in Australian motorsport, registers when you go across the timing beacon.
Yeah, it's a real nothing little sector in that instance, but it will be indicative just in that and just how good people can get the runoff of for, as I mentioned, one of the two critical points. And less so, I think, with supercars racing. We know plenty of categories rely on this in real life. Less so with supercars, though. But I think even then to a bit tonight, Slipstream will play a little bit of help here and there. We saw little bits of it at Monza. It's not going to be as strong as it was at Monza. We don't have quite the length of time at full throttle around this track. But if it's in a battle with someone coming through 4 or coming out of 12, Slipstream may be the deciding factor by the time you get to turn 6 or to turn 1.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. You're not in the throttle for as much as you were at the likes of Monza, but you're still in the throttle hard at least 3 times. So out of the last corner, down the front chute, out of turn number 4, up the back straight, and out of Dandenong Road on the approach to the final chicane. They're the 3 zones where you are hard in the throttle, but it's probably only about 50% of the actual lap. All right, we are getting set to get things underway here. There's a couple of drivers that we're just waiting on to get things going for qualifying. Now, it is a night roadie where we do have the top 10 shootout that comes along for things as well. So there was a bit of a logjam in practice when it comes to the shootout, just looking at the numbers.
Yeah, there was. As per usual, and to be fair, practice isn't the most indicative times. We could see towards the end a few guys looked like they'd gone for some early quality runs, but a lot of the guys at the top tend to leave that in the bag until they get to the race session. Whereas some guys very much, there are a couple of guys running who haven't done a lot of running either for tonight or there are a couple of guys, unfortunately one of them has dropped out, but there were a couple of guys here as well that haven't done much running at all this season, period. That have turned up tonight. So their practice is really just going to be more focusing on the race practice, if anything. But yeah, there was as things sit right now, and it's a little bit of a throw because Kurt Stenberg was one of the guys who we're waiting on, and he was one of the times to drop out. But as things sit currently, Noah Tara at the top on an 8 flat. Then we go back to Brenton Foley on an 8.4. I believe Kurt Stenberg was somewhere in that gap. But then from Foley, it's Foley on a 4.25. Rutledge on an 8.43, which is pretty good for Cam. 8.5 for Steele Allison, 8.5 for Will Devonish, 8.6 for Lockie Locke, 8.66 for Daniel Cox, 8.66. Tied times between Daniel Cox and Scott Murrell. And then back to an 8.7 for Luke Speck, and then another 8.7 for Kurt Ligmanis. So we're going to see some pretty tight times across this, and I think more so than Townsville, the gaps are going to be smaller, and it's actually going to be a real challenge to, I think even once we're into the session properly, to really get an idea of, right, who's safe and where's the back end of the 10 going to be. I don't think we're really going to find that out until the last couple of minutes of the session, but that does also depend on drivers on how late they push into the session. I know some guys will be pretty confident and will get out of it early, and we have had sessions before where essentially the session is ended and the times for the 10 have already been set because everyone else out on track either isn't on a good enough lap or just isn't at risk of going for the 10.
No, that's exactly right. So we had a looking at the times here as well. So the spread from first to last in the running order is 1.8 seconds, which actually it doesn't sound too terrible, all things considered, with a few drivers that, as I said, haven't been in the seat for a little while and haven't done as many laps. There are a few outliers in there as well that I think we're really going to see if they've actually just been focusing in on the long runs or if they've actually thrown a few short runs in there and then there's been a little bit of a problem. So we'll wait and find out in the next few minutes whether or not any of that happens. What we might do while we're actually waiting for one last driver to sort themselves out, we'll take a look at the team standings before we go too much further, because that's the nice short one of these. There we go. So it is a massive margin, isn't it, out in front, Roadie? 519 points between the two CRE teams, and actually make it 3 CRE teams in the top 3. It's been a bit of a domination for them this weekend, this year. The big one that I guess is still up for debate here is probably between 3rd, 4th and 5th. PBF Race Engineering, SES Shogun, still within earshot of taking a top 3 in the team's championship. There's only about 160, 170 odd points there between them. and that's probably where the real, I guess, interest is going to be through the closing 4 rounds of the season in terms of teams.
Yeah, so yeah, very much sort of set in stone at this point to a degree. 1-2. You could actually argue it could be changes there, but I think the 1-2 grouping is set. Mathematically, it could change from there, but from there, it's 1,000 odd points back to third place, and you're not getting that reining that one in easy. But yeah, the third, fourth, fifth battle. Cam Rutledge and Daniel Cox really up there through more consistency, but also they've got Lockie Burke and Scott Murrell that have come in and filled in as well. Scott Murrell's filled in a few different teams. He's running for the Flint McHugh guys tonight as a fill-in. SES Shogun in fourth, with Specky obviously second in the points, doing probably a lot of the haul there. And PBF Engineering coming up late in the season. Phil Boak's been not able to make too many rounds this year, but Brennan Ross has come back into the fold. Not only has he done a couple of guest drivers, he's kind of, at this point, almost the third driver option for PBF Race Engineering. So that's what's bringing them up late in the standings. And I think for what it matters, all 6 of the nominated drivers, by that I'm including Brennan Ross in that, are here tonight for those 3 teams.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we're actually unfortunately reached the sort of the point, I guess we call it, of no return. It is a time-critical night tonight for a couple of reasons. One, because it is such a long night in terms of the amount of driving that has to happen. There is of course qualifying. There is a top 10 shootout. There is the race that has to happen as well as the warm-up, and the race is expected to be, the better part of 100 plus minutes. So that has actually all got to fit into a nice little bit of time. So we have got to advance the clock here as well. And on top of that, this poor unfortunate soul actually does have a time critical himself, because needing to catch a flight the next morning is no mean feat.
No, it isn't. I did that a couple of weeks ago, but I locked out and had to do it on a Sunday rather than on a Saturday, so that was quite fortunate. But what that does mean is that Kurt Stenberg will not be partaking in qualifying, and therefore you wouldn't guarantee him an automatic entry to the shootout, but logically you would argue he would be. So that does open up a spot in the shootout. Technically you'd argue too, because Roman McFarlane also, I don't know if he's racing tonight, but he has been racing the last few rounds. He's also going to be qualifying. So on your regular bets, there's 1 or 2 spots in the top 10 that weren't otherwise available that will now go up for auction, as it were, to the fastest drivers. A bit of a change to the usual proceedings. Normally it's one of the CRE Anson cars leading us around. This time it is championship leader Will Devonish in his retro livery for tonight.
Yeah, he's the one that's kicking along out in front, and he's leading that pack heading down into the final corner. Actually just watching Scott Murrell here, he's tucked in behind Will Devonish as they head out of their final sequence of corners. I guess there's a couple of corners on here to keep to sort of be aware of, like turn 5, which they'll be coming up to in the not too distant future, is of course another one of those cars that, one of those corners that is basically doesn't exist, as if you really want the to use the proper language. We call them inconsequential corners in all sorts of motorsport. It means that you can basically take it and don't even know it's there. So this is turn number 3 for Mr. Steele Allison. This is turn 4, and then turn 5 you'll see it bends to the right here. It is an actual proper corner, but because you're taking it at full chat, you really don't need to do anything too sinister with it. And as you go up the hill here and up and over the rise and come down towards Dandenong Road, there's the second of the inconsequential corners as you come out of Dandenong Road, which is getting through here, through turn number 9, and then as you come under the Penrite Bridge, you can see here, this is labelled as turn 10, but again, it's just a little kink, it's nothing serious at all. You can just take it full chat, doesn't really mean a thing. And then the last one of these inconsequential corners is turn number 13, so this is turn 11, turn 12 here. You go wide here, turn 13, again labelled as a proper corner, but because you're pretty much angling towards that apex and you're sort of angling toward the front straight, you really don't even notice that corner. But they are officially labelled as corners on a circuit. At least they do label the corners properly in Australia. We can think about some of the circuits we've seen overseas over the course of time that don't label them, and usually when we talk about that, we're talking about the Americans, because they label some corners 8A and 8B and 8C. It's like it's its own individual number. Guys, can you just label it properly, please?
Well, I was thinking this is a bit of an American corner numbering style of if we must increase the count of corner numbers, even if we're counting kings, because really, like, it's one of those weird things where the front straight, which isn't straight, the surface paradise, isn't counted as a corner, but those three are. And I'd argue that that's more of a corner than the three inconsequential kinks are here at Sandown. But it's one of those weird things where tracks are numbered by, there's not really an international standard on who, on how you number corners and who decides the number of the corners. Is just up to individual tracks and individual race organising bodies and whoever else who decides to name the corner numbers. But we're getting a tangent there.
Yeah, no, we certainly are. So it's almost like in some cases I would have thought they had to actually label them as corner numbers, probably to meet some minimum standard. But then you look at some circuits like Simmons Plains and Barbagallo, they've only got 7 corners. It's like, oh well, they're FIA grade 3. We don't probably have to worry about meeting that sort of requirement. So here we go.
Yeah, I wouldn't think FIA grading would include minimum corner numbers given some of the F1 tracks of years gone past. But yeah, back to what we're actually looking at.
No, that's right. So we're keeping an eye on some things at the moment. Now, we were already debating, actually, there was a bit of a debate raging on about who was going to do 7s in qualifying. Well, there's only one person that's done it so far, and that's Will Devonish. He's done a 7.6. So at the moment, he is top of the charts. He'll be the last one out in the shootout as it stands right now. If things were to freeze in this current order, Steve Warwick would be the last one inside the 10. As Cam Rutledge has just gone off the road there at top of the run down towards Dandenong Road. Oh, is that, yep, that was Foley bowling a bit of a wide at turn number 1. He's going to do some lawn mowing and just come straight out the other side here. That was on an outlap too for him, actually. That's a bit of a surprise.
It's a good way to shorten the outlap.
Yeah, well, plenty of time left on the clock, importantly. It's only 5 minutes out of the 10. Remember, so this is all about positioning for the run to get into the shootout. One of those sorts of very, very busy little laps. It's a lap that's over and done with, as you see there, in less than 70 seconds for most of the field. I mean, we don't really have an idea of who's done the long run pace versus the short run pace, but we're now starting to see a few drivers start to sort of pop to the top of the standings and lift them up. That they are indeed. Some of the times we saw those drivers do in the practice sessions were indeed the long lap times. And a few drivers that we probably did notice were sandbagging throughout the practice. This is one of them, Damon McDonald. He was well down into the 9s, I think it was. From what I understand, he was doing most of his long runs because he hadn't done any practice all week. And he's now lifted himself up to 4th. He's at there with an 8.55. So pretty handy time for him. And what about the camo livery?
Yeah, it's something different. It's interesting to see some of the variations that we see for Monster liveries, especially even the Monster itself. Sort of committed to the Red Bull theming, in that they don't really change much year on year. I think the easiest, the jokes that have been to do a Cam Waters livery, you need some chalkboard paint and some $5 stickers, and you kind of get the point across. But it's interesting to see, like, he's got, I believe he's got a pink livery on his Supercar as well. He definitely has a pink livery in his Dev Series car that he's been running, and it's been a good opportunity for, I know Brandon Dost's been doing a couple of these liveries. I think in years gone past, if not this year as well, Daniel Cox has done a couple of liveries for Damon McDonald with Monster theming, and it's good to see the variety that you can get out of it, because there's a lot of different varieties of can, essentially, for Monster, and this will be what this car is based on. It'll be one of the, well, it's written down the side, the Monster Energy Assault can, a military style camo. But it's something different, and you don't tend to see, I think we're going back to the sort of the days where, and it's not like they don't now, but back to the days where it was more pronounced when Red Bull and ProDrive had allegiances with Air Force and Army and Navy each year.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah.
We don't see much of that in the IRL series now.
No, we certainly don't. Well, he's on another run for an outlap, so he's probably got another 2 laps left in him for that one is there. You mentioned Daniel Cox a few minutes ago and the liveries that he normally produces. He's down in 17th at the moment. He's the last of the runners. He actually was in a pretty decent spot in practice. He's advanced himself 1 spot there, but he hasn't been able to put a lap together. He was comfortably in the 8s in the earlier practice session, and I've just noticed him struggling on a couple of occasions here. At one stage he banked a 19 around here, and that was just to put a time on the board, I think, more than anything. Let's see if he's actually just trying to phase the tyres in, and ramp it up in this second lap on rubber for the number 94. Well, based on that time at sector split, I think he's kind of nursing it a little bit here. Maybe he just hasn't got maybe landed a good lap in practice and hasn't been able to live with it. But he was the one that was one of the big outliers for me in the practice session. He was well entrenched inside the top 10 for a good chunk of that 2-hour hit out.
Yeah, maybe he's just. It's only possible. We've had this before, and it's a pretty common thing. Well, it's unfortunately not the way to put it, but it is a common thing where you can just get caught in traffic, just be out of position, or even just not be able to quite focus with the lap together at the first half of the session, which does put the pressure on the back half of the session. But yeah, given on his practice pace, I would assume he's sitting on something a little bit there. And okay, there's some of it. He's brought himself up a few positions there just through a better run through the last sector. Obviously, sitting green runs through that. He's not too far removed individually from some sectors from the other cars around him.
Yep.
He needs to improve a little bit in that last sector. Actually, there's probably a bit of time off there. And the first sector, I don't know. It might have just been we've had this before with guys as well, where session changes and condition changes between sessions have caught them out. Potentially, depending on how these cars were set up, it could be a little bit sensitive. But it is weird, given that he was pretty comfortably at or around the 10, and he is starting to creep back up there now. But well, given that run through there, he's going to probably throw this lap away and then have one more run after this.
There's a few drivers who've only got one more run left as well. Brendan Ross is about to do one, so he's just improved a little bit on the time. He hasn't improved the place. And he's one of the drivers that possibly could jump up into the top 10 if he can make it stick. Steve Warwick was one that was on the bubble in 11th. He's not going to improve any further because he's gone back to the pit lane. Lockie Lock in 10th place on an 8.824. He's sort of the one at risk here. And you've got Brendan Ross and Brandon Dostal, who are the two that I'm going to try and keep my eye on here over the next little bit, see if they can advance any further. Rossi's actually gone pretty slow in that first sector, so nothing for him. Dostal's not too far off of his PB. He's actually just on the road behind Brendan Ross, so he's a little bit too far away to pick up any of that distant tow, but how brave does he want to be into the top of the hill here? A little bit of a brake lock-up going in there. Car wants to wander wide at turn number 6 and had to really wrestle it back to the apex at turn 7. A little bit untidy on the exit. He's going to have to probably be rather aggressive into this final corner. No, I think that might be actually a track infringement. I wouldn't be surprised if it is at the first part of the last chicane. And yeah, I think he has. He realised that he's bailed. So that is him done and dusted. Cox at the end of the day didn't get up past 14th. Luke Newing, and he's being a late surprise. A little bit of a wiggle out of the final corner. He drives to the line here, and he is 17th still. So he couldn't quite make any moves out of there either.
Speaking of a late surprise, though, when he put his driver who was 17th until he just set that lap going through, and is now sitting P9. Lewis Wedding, on his return to the ASR Supercars Championship, has put it into the top 10 shootout.
Yeah, we welcome him back to the fold after a good 12 months away, and very, very silently just improved his lap time there. I don't think anybody was quite expecting that one, but he sneaks in at the expense of, actually I'm just trying to look at what's happened here. I think it was Lockie Lock actually moved himself up the order because he was the one that was on the bubble, and Steele Allison as well was in there. Igmanis is the one that is bumped out of the top 10.
Yeah, and that was unfortunate. He was, I think up to that point, he was feeling like he was pretty safe. He had a good 2:10 gap to Steve Warwick, who would, I think, was in the lane when the time was coming down. I can't actually remember where Igmanis was in the picture, whether he was comfortably set up in the lane. But yeah, he was tight for him, but he was in a good spot. And then, yeah, I think anyone was necessarily planning Lewis, given his time out of the seat. He's definitely not a slow driver, but I know sort of towards the back end of his time here, full time, he was definitely feeling like he was starting to maybe fall off on the pace wagon. But pretty good to get back into the 10 after a run. I'm not sure how much practice he's put. I know he's put some in, but yeah, pretty good run. And really unfortunate for Termo because he was right there, and now that spot goes to Lewis Wedding.
Certainly does. So your top 10 out of all of that, and I think you're going to have to note these ones down, the order that they're going to go out in a shootout. Mitchell Steele Allison, Lewis Wedding, Luke Speck, Brenton Foley, Cam Rutledge, Lockie Lock, Scott Murrell, Damon McDonald, Noah Tara, and Will Devnish. So definitely a couple of surprises in that one.
There is, yeah. So order getting out will be Steele Allison, Wedding, Speck, Foley, Rutledge, Locke, Murrell, McDonald, Noah Tara, and Will Devonish.
Mm-hmm.
And crucially, well, as we mentioned, Kurt Stenberg not here, will be starting 18th. And Corey McFarlane, if he turns up as well, probably starting 18th or 19th as well. So not the run that Stenberg wanted. He's going to have a bit of a challenge. Granted, it is one of the longer races on the calendar. It's a perfect sort of race to strategize your way into it, but we're not at that point yet. We are about to enter the shootout, and once it goes green, it will be in the hands of Mitchell Steele Allison to start us off.
Yeah, certainly will be. So we're keeping an eye on a couple of things here, because we've not only got the qualifying results that are there, but the positions 11 through to 18 very much now locked in. And then the important piece now is how does the qualifying translate into a one lap dash. It's just you and the track and 17 other sets of beady eyes watching you. I guess that's probably to put it politely. Oh, hang on a minute. There's a couple of little dramas going on the server side here, so we will just reload a couple of things, and hopefully we'll be in a stronger position here. Just noticed that we had advanced to a session that we were not expecting it to advance to, which was a bit strange. So it actually had skipped over qualifying for some reason or another. And then so we didn't have a chance to do the shootout. But a couple of ones that's a bit of a surprise there, one, Rhodey. I think it's been a long time between drinks for Cam Rutledge making the top 10 shootout.
It would have been a while, yeah. Cam's been he's been competitive for the last couple of years, but he's just sort of been generally floating around the back end of the 10 is where we've seen it. Sort of maybe 11th, 12th is where we used to sort of seeing Cam float in on a good day. He was receiving a few remarks from team boss Will Devonish in practice. Some of them I think was for making small errors here or there, but I've imagined one of those would have been a response to pace, because he wasn't too far off pace in practice from memory. So look, really good effort from Cam. Obviously, he's got the backing of the Seri powerhouse, so he's got the assistance of the likes of the guys at the top end of the shootout. So Will Devonish, Noah Tara, Scott Murrell, even though he's not going for driving for LitMcHugh today, but he is a CRE contracted driver. Lockie Locke, get some good energy to get him up in there. But really good to see Cam up there as well, because it is a long time since we've seen him in a top 10.
No, certainly is. Well, shootout's about to get underway. Just waiting on the starters' orders here, just for the green flag at the end of pit lane. And you can see there's 35 minutes on the clock here. That's just a formality, purely because we need to make sure there's enough time for the shootout to be completed. So the first of the Mustangs to go out, and here we go, green flag as we leave the lane for the first time. So Steele Allison, he was just the one that just snuck in to the top 10 shootout. 1 minute 8.771, and he edged out Curtis Igmanis, not by very much, by 2/100ths of a second effectively was the margin at the end of the day. That's how the difference between 10th and 11th. If they had gone and been able to put all their best possible laps together, this is where it gets interesting, Rhodey. Igmanis would have been 1/1000th of a second faster than Mitchell Steele Allison.
He would have, yeah. And as I said, there's been nothing much in it for these guys. And it's all about trying to get that good run, trying to get a good run in traffic, trying to control where you are in traffic as well. And it's always a tricky argument. This track, I'd say maybe a little more, because it's kind of the argument with Monza of, you don't want to be too close to someone that you catch them, but if you're within a second of them, you can take advantage of a bit of slipstream, which isn't as powerful as Monza, but I think would have played a difference for either of those two drivers we mentioned, that if they got slipstream over one over the other, then that would have made the difference. But yeah, at the end of the day, Mitch managed to just tie enough of it together that's put him in the shootout, and he's about to start his lap now.
Here we go. We want to get a good run out of the last corner here. Big straightaway speed. Just staring over his shoulder here, so he's pulled 5th gear, pulled 6th gear right there, just at the pit exit, getting up towards 265 kilometres an hour, and you hit the brakes as close to the 100 metre board as you dare. Skates a little bit past the apex, just missed it a fraction, but that's not too bad. He'll keep piling on there. Got to ride the curb here nicely at 2. You've got to have to ride it again nicely at 3. Sit it up halfway on that curb on the outside, and then if you can get a nice run through here, just clip the apex nicely, and he'd get the power down as early as you possibly can. As soon as the car settles after hitting the ground, after getting around that apex, you floor it and you keep it pinned until you get up the top here to around the 100 metre board, and that's when you start to get prepared to turn in. All cars twitchy as all hell going into turn number 6. He had to get a couple of bites at that one there. It very nearly got away from him.
He did, yeah, just a good job to get that back under control given the speed and energy you're throwing at the car through the run through 6. Coming now into the last sector, even though technically the timing sector started a good half a lap ago. And very clean run in that last couple of corners as well. Tucks it right to the inside to try and shorten the run to the line, and he set it 8.625.
8.625. That's actually quicker than what he did to get into the shootout. So it's very, very close to the number that it would have been his optimal. Actually a couple of thousandths faster than his optimal to get into the shootout. So that's actually a pretty good result, despite the fact it was very twitchy up the top of the hill and probably gave away a very small amount of time. That's a very impressive lap to start the shootout. So very well done for Mitchell Steele-Allison. He's been a very been a bit of a front runner in the Dev Series, so I'm not surprised that he's sort of up this pointy end of the standings. But always good to go quicker in the shootout than you do to get into it in the first place, and then that's now the effort that's going to be attempted by the returning Lewis Wedding, who steps in to the Leonard Grossel 666 machine for this evening.
He does, so we're welcoming Lewis Wedding to PBF for tonight, which would actually be, I think, the first time he's driven for us. So at this point, I think we can say we've absorbed what remained of the Pixel team, but we won't tell them that. But really good run for Lewis through this first sector, much cleaner than he was getting in practice and part of his qualifying runs.
He's in the ballpark too, look at that, so only a half a tenth away from the Mitchell Steele-Allison number at Sector 1. Very, very nice start. How committed is he at the top of the hill? Does the car look a bit more settled? Doesn't look too bad over the bumps. He got a very good run out of turn number 4, so he had a little bit more mileage in a straight line there, and he's actually 7 1/1000ths up. So this is where Mitchell sort of really gathered it up in his lap as he goes into the final couple of corners. Just got to get that curb right. It's a nasty curb at the approach to turn 11, but it does help turn the car if he can make it stick. Shortest possible run to the start-finish line, and he gets it done. 36 thousandths of a second is the margin there for Lewis Wedding. That's a very, very handy job for him. Very, very tight confines it is in the qualifying session so far, and Luke Speck's now the one that goes out to quote a little bit of terminology here. You'll know where this one comes from, Rody. He's a bit late to the party, but here he was sitting in pit lane like a wanker. It's been a long time since you've heard that one, hasn't it?
Look, yes and no. I know another league likes to throw the pit lane wanker term around if you're the last one to get ready for a session. But yeah, it's been a while since I've heard it within the confines of AMS. And yeah, Specky was instructed when to head out. I think something wasn't quite right in his setup though, because he did very quickly return back to the garage.
There we go.
But he's headed out now, and look, if nothing else, what he's done is he's made sure he gets himself a little bit more air time over the other cars, given. Well, we had to cut away from Lewis pretty early. And yeah, so he's been basically giving himself a whole extra lap of exposure over every other car. Well,
you can see Brenton Foley's actually waiting there in the pit lane for his turn to go. So he's waiting as soon as that order comes through. Luke Speck's on his way, second of the Camaros. So Lewis Wedding and Mitchell Steele-Allison have both improved their times that they used to get into the shootout by a very small margin each, but the margin's very fine at the moment. So Lewis's 8.58 is an improvement on his 8.67, and then Steele-Allison's 8.625 is an improvement on his 8.771. Whereas Speck's actually lost a bit of time here in sector number 1, so I'm wondering whether that little bit of haste to go back into the pits and have to put the setup on has maybe just sort of messed with the psyche a little bit. He's had a poor run out of turn 4. He's lost another 1/10 and a half there, and a big lock-up at the top of the hill. So not going according to plan here for the number 13 from the SES Shogun stable, but importantly in the shootout, and that's very important when it comes to the team standings, and also the fact he is second in the Drivers' Championship, which we'll have a look at on the other side of the shootout. He gets to the line and he does an 8.9, so he slots into position number 3. So not the way he would have hoped that one to go.
No, not at all. Like importantly, he is in 10, and he has had a time which, given the way this track plays out, might make a difference for him at the end of this. But at this point, starting in 10th, but he's still ahead of it, another 7 or 8 cars. And look, if someone's going to be able to strategize his way to the front from here or to near front, I expect you to be one of those people.
Yeah, I think so. He's already thinking about the strategy from the long game. So we'll wait and see. I mean, it's not the end of the day, even for the likes of Kurt Stenberg, who's at the back of the field. You know, it'll be there's definitely going to be an element of strategizing that's going to come into the race very, very shortly. It's Brenton Foley, 074, PBF Race Engineering, category stalwart. He loves this place. He goes every single year when the supercars turn up and come to put on a show in real life. And he knows this place pretty well. Well, that's a good start. You're a 10th and a little bit up, and you've had a reasonably good run through sector number 1. And now you're heading up the hill into the braking zone for the approach to turn number 6. Maximum use of the road, not an inch more. Gains another little bit of time there. The car again, we've seen that a few times today, Rody. A few drivers have just pushed that braking zone a little bit too deep into the corner, thinking they can make it, and then the car gets to the top of the hill and it wanders wide. It likes to understeer, this Gen 3 car, so you've got to then either trust it, he backs it in there too. You've got to trust it, and you've got to just make sure you've got a car that's set up that will stick there, because that does bleed a little bit of time if you let it go on for too long. And for Foley, he goes to the top of the standings with a 8-4, but he did lose a little bit of time there at the top of the hill.
He did, yeah. Well, when we say that, looking at the sector time, actually no, it was a PB, but he sector times there, he did lose a couple of tenths there through that last sector, which probably would have started at the top of the hill. It's an easy one to do around here, and it's interesting to know that I know IRL, plenty of cars benefit from being a little bit on throttle there to try and get the rear to stabilise. Maybe that's a thing that afflicts the Gen 3 cars as well. I suppose we'd have to see and maybe have a chat to some of the drivers after this. But now is Cam Rutledge.
Well, this will be the halfway point in the shootout. So Cam Rutledge, the 4th of the Camaros to go out. So 1 Mustang and 4 Camaros so far. Into turn number 1 he goes, nice and tidy. 3 of the 4 drivers so far have improved their times that they did to get into the shootout. So the track is fast, and on top of that, with all the little eyes on them, the pressure's on, and the drivers are responding here. Rutledge, a little bit slow through turn with the first 4 corners of the racetrack, but at the end of the day, you've made the shootout, so that's always a bonus. You can always, anytime you're in the top half of the field is always a good thing. And losing a little bit more time into turn number 6. You see there, he actually didn't attack the top of the hill as much as a lot of the other drivers did. The car actually responded. It actually turned nicely at turn 6, and it was online for turn 7. Didn't have to wrestle the wheel there. However, because you don't push the envelope that much, and you can see there, he stayed well wide of the known curb at turn number 11, giving away a little bit of time here. And I think this is just a lap to make sure you get in, and he does, and he gets in. So he actually picked up a little bit of time in that last sector. So he's only a quarter second down at the end of the day versus the current best.
He is, yeah, and a really clean run for what it counts, and that does matter for these guys, because I mentioned Reyes to pick up a track cut in a couple of places here. But look, gets him in, gets a good time, and I think for Cam, I think making the shootout probably was kind of the achievement in and unto itself. I don't think he was maybe expecting too much more from that.
No, I would agree with you on that statement by a long, long way. So he slots into the 4th quickest time at the moment versus everybody else, but we are halfway through the order. And now we're on to another one of the Mustangs. So Lockie Lock in the number 237, the amped up racing by CRE, bright paintball livery car, I guess we can call this one, Rody. Is that what we're going with, paintball?
Yeah, the very much looks like it's been in the middle of a paintball fight.
Yeah, it certainly has. So into turn number 1, 2 and 3. Oh, car got away. A little bit of the rear just got away there going through turn number 3 before he tried to put the power down. He had to gather that one up. Time's still pretty respectable, but the thing that I'll be looking for is, has that cost him a straightaway performance going up the hill here? Sector split for Sector 2 comes up now. Yes, it has. It's cost him nearly 2 tenths.
It has, yeah. So it really twitchy car, and then the way that thing picked up and tried to rotate itself on the way into 4, it really sort of ruined ruined Sector 2, and has really impacted his start to Sector 3. it's possible to bring it back from here, but he's going to have to be maximum attack, which he is. He's one of the first guys to really, really get close to that curb, although he's cost himself as a run onto the straight as a result. Kind of fallen apart at the back end of this lap as it's gone on for Lockie Lock. Although that said, still second.
Very good. Second, 108.484, and that is 6/1000ths of a second quicker than what he did to get into the shootout. So another driver finds some improvement. So there are drivers that are really sort of pushing hard here, and they are finding times that are better than what they did to get into the shootout. The problem is there's a couple of other drivers that have just found just that little bit more.
Yeah, it's you definitely the aim, I think, coming into a shootout is to improve upon what you did to get into the session to begin with. But everyone's doing that to some degree, and some of them are doing it much better than others. And Foley is a good example of somebody that started at the back end of the 10, who's managing to drag his way up through it. Actually, Lewis Wedding as well, still sitting up there in third.
Yeah, so he's the big mover out of this. So he was the second man out in the shootout. He's gained 3 spots already out of all of this. And Brent Foley's gained a couple as well. So now on to Scott Murrell. Well, we've teased the P word a lot with him over the course of the season so far, because every time he steps into the Gen 3 car, he just seems to gel with it. Not only is he doing really well in Super 2, but this car, I don't know what it is. A lot of drivers say they struggle with it sometimes. He just seems to find a way to make it work.
He does, yeah. Or not to get ahead of the silly season for this year, but he has already made confirmations privately that he is expecting to be in a car for next year, which is good to see, because he did. That was kind of his aim coming out of Super 2 a couple of years ago, or so leaving PBF, was to go to a team that can get him to Supercars. And look, anyone's going to get you Supercars pace. It is CRE, and so far pretty good pace in this session as well. I'm just waiting for the Sector 2 time to come through, but so far, pretty good run.
It's a nice, clean run. It's not a fast run, though. That's the thing. He's 4/10 down on the best time that has been posted so far, with only 3 more drivers to go. So he's got a lot to find in this last sector if he's going to really threaten a good starting position here. It's a 9. It's a 9-1 for Murrell. It got worse and worse and worse as it went on. So just as we were singing his praises about how well he's been driving this car, it's gone all wrong there for the man behind the wheel of the 06.
Yeah, maybe not the sort of person that benefits from the praise. I know there's a few guys that maybe benefit from the inverse praise. I'm not seeing Hugh Scotty being one of them, but yeah, it didn't quite go his way. That's unfortunate. But we do have his teammate for tonight up next.
Yeah, that's the thing. The teammate's going out back-to-back out of the Luke McHugh Racing stable. So the camo of Damon McDonald heads off towards turn number 1 in the number 59 Ford Mustang. And plenty of curb usage there to help turn the car. Had a little bit of a mid-corner wiggle. It's okay. He was able to gather that up. There was enough room for it. Rear end stepped away at turn 2. That was costly for turn 3 because it put him well wide of the turn-in point. And the clock, rightfully disagrees.
Yeah, he would have to get out of that pretty heavily to avoid basically making a ramp out of the third corner curb and launching straight into the outside wall. So, look, he's kept it on track. He's kept the lap clean. He is going to record a time, at least based on his efforts so far, but it's going to take a bit of work to try and make that back up.
Yeah, it certainly is. So it's compounded as well. So the mistake at turn 2 forced the mistake at turn 3, then forced a slow entry and rotation at turn 4, which then hurts the straightaway speed up to turn through 5 and 6. So that's why he's a good 4/10 down at the moment, and needs to try and recover it here in this final sector. Shortest possible run to the line. Where does it put him? It puts him 6th, 2 spots ahead of Murrell. So he recovers a little bit of time, but that opening half of the lap just did not go well.
No, we're in an interesting situation now where the guys that went out early, and like Lewis went out second, Mitch Stillhousen out first, Foley was out 4th, still floating around the top of the tree, but we do still have 2 cars left to go, and 2 cars we would expect to go faster than an 8.4. The first one of those is Noah Turra.
That's right. Well, I mean, it's the last couple of drivers that have been out, Murrell and McDonald, have been under a little bit of pressure, I would have thought. They've seen these drivers all go out before them, and they've seen them go and improve their time, and they're like, okay, track's fast, but you've got to execute. That's the biggest problem. So they haven't been able to execute. They're starting a bit further down the order than otherwise would have, and that might compromise a little bit of the strategy for them if they were expecting to be, top 5, versus being top 10. Then you might find yourself in the pack a little bit early on and have to pull a bit of a strategy masterstroke. We'll wait and see how that all pans out. Noah Turra, a 10th down in the first sector. It's not too bad. It's a very controlled opening sector. Second quickest or third quickest sector time we've seen through sector 1 so far. How clean's the run up and over the hill? He's lost a little bit more time here as well. This is a very interesting situation. A lot of these faster cars at the back end of the shootout just struggling, and Turra, wouldn't say it's a mistake there, just the car just didn't hit the curb at the right angle there going through Dandenong Road, and he might have had to put a little bit opposite lock on there, kept it going the right direction, and this is a very controlled lap, Rody. This is not an all-out aggressive lap. Does it translate? It translates into pole. That's a shock. That's a very big shock for me that it got through the first couple of sectors and it was 2/10 down at the top of the hill, and it was very measured and very controlled. It didn't look like it was going to be a front row starting lap for Noah Turra, but he's managed to get it together.
It's almost like watching the old reasonably priced car laps, where the most unremarkable the lap could be, the quicker it would actually be on the timing tree. Like, yeah, the first 2 sectors, like, okay, yeah, he's out of the picture. Put him in with the rest of the guys down the back end. But yeah, clearly sector 3. Well, there's a lot to sector 3, and probably a bit of a confidence game there. I think more than the first 2 sectors. Clearly Noah had what you needed to get it right, and so I suppose now maybe a good sign for Will Devonish, who's about to start his lap as well.
Well, that may be the good sign. Let's see what happens. Current points leader, provisional fastest in the qualifying session. He was actually top of the timesheets by a country mile. Can he translate that into something in the shootout here? It's all under the gun here. So he's always been good with the one-lap shootouts and the one-lap dashes and the qualifying. It's obviously the race starts that have been the big problem for some time. He's fractionally up on Noah Turra. So that's the start. A half a tenth. It doesn't sound like much, but it's a start.
It is, yeah. And to be fair, we look at how far off Noah was to eventually get the time in the end. If he can keep there or thereabouts with Noah's run, and actually he's improved slightly on the run into essentially the turn 6-7. So he's in a good position now. If he can just have the same sort of run through that Turra did, we could see him sneak into the 7s again.
We'll soon find out. The best is an 8-2 for Noah Turra. And that's got him currently on position on the front row. Devonish beats it with a 7-8. So you called that one there, Rody. He had that first sector, which was in the game. It got good at the top of the hill. It was very good at the back end. So it's another pole for Will Devonish, and he'll try and convert that front row start into a very, very nice finishing position come in a handful of minutes' time. Shootout complete. Devonish from Turra. Brent Foley advancing up the order. So too Lockie Lock. He actually advanced a little bit spot. Big positional gain for Lewis Wedding ahead of Mitchell Steele-Allison. And Cam Rutledge lost a little bit there. McDonald and Murrell, the two that definitely were expected to be a bit higher up the order, but were not. And in between them is the SES Shogun entry of Luke Speck. So that concludes the shootout. And it allows us to move on to the warm-up session.
It does, and I will say I just seen a remark in the live chat from Scott Murrell, and it seems to be the common theme for drivers in the shootout this year, just having trouble getting the car heated up in the time available to them. Generally, it's been an issue with getting the heat into the hard tyres, given that those only take a couple of laps of racing to get up to an operating temperature. Interesting this happened in soft tyres, but also we're going to a track that does not attract a lot of tyre warming on a conventional lap. So I can see how, but it's weird. We in the hard tires, we didn't really tend to see a lot of aggressive tire warming, because maybe it just wasn't worth it. But I think maybe tonight, maybe it's something that the driver's forgotten about. It's something that's actually a thing you can do. We don't see much. We said in Dev Series, I think some of the Nathan Higginson style tire warming on formation laps and the like. that might have benefited a few of these guys at the back end of the session, and Scott Morrill probably one of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting that given they're on soft tyres, I wouldn't have think tyre warming and getting the carb temp would have been quite so hard. But I suppose if you don't think about warming your tyres, very easy to forget to warm them up at all.
Well, we've seen this in the development series. It's something that I've been noticing even with my own driving is that, sometimes it's not a bad idea to do like a 3/4 strength sort of, first flying lap on the tire, and then you actually then go for it on the next lap, because sometimes it's all about positioning on that first lap, especially on a small track with a lot of cars. And then, if you can, get the tire phased in right, you've heated it up, it can actually respond quite nicely. So, sometimes it has the benefit, but in certain cases, like here where you've only got a 1 lap dash to do things, you actually have to do all your tyre warming as much as possible on the opening out lap. So more often than not, you're going to either spend the time to warm the tyre, or you're going to go as flat chat as possible and try and get the whole car up to temperature and allow the tyre to naturally change its profile and become warm from there. Let's have a look at the drivers' standings while we're in the warm-up session here, because we are 8 rounds in out of the 12-round season, so we're 2/3 complete. Tonight will bring us up to 75% of the season complete. It's going very, very fast this year. Out in front, a just over 300-point margin there for Will Devonish over Luke Speck. That's the easy one to spot. The likes of Kurt Stenberg, Brenton Foley and Noah Turra, and probably even Mitchell Steele-Allison, don't rule them out from really starting to try and spoil the party for with Luke Speck, because they're with anyone that's probably within, I'd say, 300 points of Specky at the moment, Rhodey, with the 4 rounds remaining, including tonight, are definitely in with a shot of top 5.
They are, yeah. I think realistically, the argument for top 5 could even go back as far as the likes of, I think realistically, any of the guys in the 10 could probably be an argument for making top 5. They're going to go in, the guys that are like Daniel Cox are probably going to rely on, and it's really just Daniel Cox, are probably going to need to rely on a Morrill to a point. They need to rely on drivers not turning up, which is a bit of a challenge because the top 10 is made from guys that have raced pretty much every round this season. The exception is like Noah Turra missing last round and Kurt Stenberg missing Barbagallo. But everyone in the 10 is kind of there, for no other reason than because they've actually raced every round so far this year, although the drop round will play a part into that, and it will affect some of those guys more than it affects the guys behind them. So that might decide the fight for the 10. But for the 5, yeah, it's a good little battle there. There's probably there's about 100 points, not even 99 points that cover Brenton Foley down to Lockie Lock, and then from there, Igmanis is only another 30 points behind that. So there's a good cluster of guys. As the rounds play on, we'll have to start to shorten that list down. Igmanis is probably the biggest stepped out from that at the moment. And I think of the guys on that list, he's the only one who didn't make it into the 10 outside of Kurt Stenberg. But Stenberg's pace is proven. He's the only one of that list that didn't make it into the 10 back to Igmanis. So he's going to have, Igmanis was what I was looking at. So he's got a bit of work to do to try and catch up to the guys ahead of him that all did make it to the 10. Granted, he'll be starting 11th, so he's only a spot behind the likes of Scott Morrill and Luke Speck and those guys that didn't really play out too well in the shootout. But yeah, there's some good little fights there, and it sort of brings a bit of spice to this championship, given that it's by no means guaranteed, but the gap between first and second kind of relies on Will forgetting when a round is to really make that a competitive argument,
or not going according to plan for the current or for the former state, the champion. So let's go over the page here, and we have a look at 11th through to 20th, because there are a few drivers definitely not here tonight that are going to start to fall through the order a bit. So the likes of Ryan Smith, Corey McFarlane, they're not here tonight. So too Darryl Callahan and Aidan Williams. A few of these drivers are going to start to fall a bit further down the order. Darren Logden, they're in 14th. He's also absent tonight, and unfortunately medically unwell at the moment, so we do wish him a speedy recovery. He was racing with us last week, but under doctor's orders, he's been ordered to have a little bit of time off, and we certainly do hope that whatever is happening with him, he is going to be okay, and we'll get to see him again fairly soon. So sad, because he's right in that fight there. He was only just behind Cam Rutledge and ahead of the charging Corey McFarlane, who's not here tonight, but Steve Warwick is definitely not too far behind Darren as well. So there's a bit that probably would have gone on not just inside the top 10, but also outside the top 10 tonight as well, had everything gone according to plan. So
we will. As I say, we will actually probably also see Brendan Ross move into the back end of the top 20 as well. He currently sits 21st, 5 points behind Aidan Williams. So he's going to move up into the top 20 as well by the end of tonight.
Yeah, he certainly will. Just keeping an eye on a couple of things here, making sure that everybody's ready and raring to go. It is not too far before we get ready for racing. Just keeping an eye on where everybody's at the moment. So all drivers present, correct, and getting ready to go. And just been observing a few messages flying around that the school teacher, Brenton Foley, had somehow gotten into his head that it was this race was 6 laps shorter than it was in the briefing notes. I don't know how he's managed to do that, Rhodey, but that he's been rightfully corrected by Brendan Ross, that it is indeed an 81-lap journey, not a 75-lap journey.
It is. I think in defence of Foley, and I should know this. Well, not I should know this, but I've known him for a few years. I should be more authoritative in this knowledge, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't teach primary school kids, and by that I'm making the point that pretty sure he's not a math teacher. So you'd expect a minimum level of maths knowledge, but if you're not a maths teacher, you don't necessarily have to be comfortable with your figures. But there's no math to this one. It was just probably. I don't remember how many laps we had for Dev Series. It might be maybe that's throwing him off, or something else.
Let's put it this way: it was written as the number of laps in the briefing notes. So it wasn't exactly rocket science to try and work it out. No, we ran on Foley, but no, he's done a lot for ASR over the years. So we do appreciate what he's got to do. He's going to be starting out of P3, Rhodey, as we get away on the formation lap.
He will be. So starting from pole in one of the two new liveries for this round is Will Devonish. He's running I think the 2008 GRM livery on the Mustang. Converts pretty well across from the VE actually. He's done a good job with that one, Temo has. Alongside him is Noah Tara for Sierra Amped Up Racing, one of 2 cars in the top 4 for that team, so they're doing pretty well tonight. Third is Brenton Foley, the first of the Camaros for PBF Race Engineering, with Lockie Lock in 4th in the paintballed CRE Amped Up Racing number 237. 5th on return and you could argue for debut for this year is Lewis Wedding, filling in for Leonard Grossel for Renshaw PBF Blackshaw. So it's 2 of those cars we've ridden tonight. With Mitchell Steele Allison in 6th as the sole PBF by SDS car. We did actually have Nathan Higgins that he's pulled out of tonight. 7th is Cam Rutledge for Sirius and Motorsport. So that's a good run from Cam as well to get up into the 10. With Damon McDonald in 8th, the lead of those 2 Liquid Q cars, running the Monster Assault livery, camo. 9th is Luke Speck for SES Shogun, running the Cooper's livery, with Scott Murrell filling in for Darryl Callahan in 10th, second to Liquid Q Racing Mustangs. 11th is Kosek Martin, the other new car. This is based on a Sierra that ran in the 1980s. We'll talk more about it during the race. 12th is Steve Warwick for Renshaw PBF Blackshaws, with Brennan Ross filling in again for Phil Vogt in 13th. 14th is Brandon Dostal. Good to see him back on the grid as well in the Alt for Liquid Q Racing by SES, with Daniel Cox in his BMW retro livery again for tonight for Sierra Anson Motorsport. 16th is Ben Hall filling in for Ethan Knight tonight in the second of Liquid Q Racing by SES Mustangs, with Luke Ewing in 17th. And Kurt Stenberg is a little further ahead of the rest of them in 18th, and he's actually running his Anti-Call Autosports livery from last year. So a bit of a retro livery in such, but it's actually the first time he's run that livery this year. He's otherwise been running his chicken dinner car.
Yeah, nice simple livery, that one. It looks simple, but it is definitely, I guess you can call it retro, because he's going back to the championship year last year, as we're waiting on, Noah Tara's the one that's out of position. He needs to come forward a little bit more, I think, before we'll get the go signal from everybody. There we go, he's moved forward. 250 kilometres, 81 laps of racing The Sandown 250 for 2025 is now officially underway in the ASR Supercars Championship. It's a very short run to turn number 1, but that doesn't mean it's any different for Will Devonish. He has coughed up the lead of the race to Noatara, and there's a little bit of, was there a little bit of contact there between the two startmasters? Well, I'll tell you what, there's some contact. Murrell. There's some contact further back. Murrell's gone for a wild ride across the grass, and Luke Newing, I'm not sure if he got into Murrell or if he was taking some evasive action, but he definitely needed to get out of it there. And there's a localised yellow flag, and there's a car around at the back, and that happens to be Ben Hall, who's facing into the wall out of the fourth corner on this circuit. So already plenty of drama at the beginning of this race.
Absolutely, yeah. Just looking back through and just trying to catch up to Ben Hall and all that, but it was a pretty messy start for the back end of that field. Ben Hall actually a bit of a 3 wide with Kurt Stenberg and Steve Warwick just kind of got pinched out of the gap there, but early out for really pushed back to the ball, but he's got 80 odd laps to recover that. Well,
let's have a look at it on the replay here, the Paint Doctor replay. We'll get an idea of what happened here. We're honed in on Scott Murrell as we go into turn number 1. The high shot there. Oh, he's done it all on his own. He's on too wide on the curb. He stayed away from the wall, so that's what happened to him. We're not quite 100% sure what happened to Luke Newing. He was actually right down the back. I'm wondering if he actually had to take a little bit of evasive action there. But Murrell's incident was, and then Ben Hall, we didn't see what happened to him, but there he was facing into the wall, exiting turn 4.
Yeah, so a couple of messy starts to this lap, and it has promoted a few guys at the back up a few positions. Speaking of promotions, Kurt Stenberg is already up to 11th, so he's done a pretty good job of carving through the field. And Will Devonish has actually just gotten back to the lead of the race as well in the last lap or so.
Yeah, so for Kurt Stenberg up to 11th and honing in now on Curtis Igmanis for 10th. He will have used a little bit of the tyre to do that, so we'll see how all that goes at the back end when it comes to the pit strategy. That'll be the important piece for him. He'll be right, I think he'll be putting right on the Mustang's tail as they get down to turn number 4. I wouldn't be surprised. Igmanis himself is tucked up behind Luke Speck. We're 2 laps now officially in the books. Just with those opening couple of corner incidents so far, and that's all. Dostal running in here behind Kurt Stenberg as well. And let's just get a read on the times. It's always a bit of a challenge getting through turns 2 and 3 here at Sandown. And as you exit turn 4 for Brandon Dostal. Whoops! And there's something else going on there in the back. And that's a nasty incident. That's Brandon Dostal. I'm not sure what happened there. Did he blip the pit lane limiter or something there? I saw there was a bright flash, and I was wondering if someone had flashed a light or something there, and maybe Dostal had missed a gear or something. Let's grab a second look at that one, because that one was most unusual. We'll get it here, and just keep an eye out for the flash. There was a little flash, and then that's not the angle we want. And yeah, it's almost like something seized in the car there. And I tell you what, Brendan Ross had absolutely no time to react.
No, I think what's happened there, and we have seen something like this before this season for Brandon Dostal. I think it was, I can't remember who the other driver, I think it might have been Cam Rutledge, at Hidden Valley, where coming out of the corner, he'd gone to catch a slide and just brushed his pit lane speed limiter while trying to recover the car, and Cam had no reason to expect the car would be slowing, given there's no brake lights on the car, because it was just auto-limiting itself down to speed. I think that's what's happened here in the same time. He's flicked the lights. I don't think that was intentional, because he was the reason he was sideways. I think it's just he's thrown his hands around the wheel trying to catch the slide and just bumped the headlight button, but in the same process he's also then probably bumped the pit lane limiter, and that's what's checked him up again. It would make sense. And yeah, same position as Rutledge was a couple of rounds ago. Ross had no idea what was happening, and all of a sudden the car in front of him started slowing for no reason.
Every time that somebody says to me that they accidentally bumped the pit lane speed limiter, I always think Andy Suchek, and the fact that he did it twice in the Big Bentley during the 2019 Bathurst 12-hour, and that brought out that late safety car, which inevitably made Matt Campbell a Bathurst 12-hour champion for Porsche. It was Manthe Racing back in the day when all that happened. Actually, no, it was Earl Bamber, sorry. Earl Bamber Racing.
It was. I I think to be fair as well, there is a difference between Pit Limited mid-session and the Bentley design they had in the wheel that year, and they did change it the next year, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
It wasn't a Pit Lane Limited, it was the kill switch.
Yeah, the kill switch, yeah. You're right, you know what I mean though, you're hitting buttons and you shouldn't actually be hitting.
No.
And if you're Lewis Hamilton, you just tell your engineer you're going to start hitting buttons, and then he tells you, no, I don't recommend that. So that's the way some of that thing happens. We just saw Cam Rutledge do a little bit more mowing there. He must have gone a little bit wide at turn number 1, so that's dropped him out of the top 10. He's dropped behind Stenberg, he's dropped behind Curtis Egmartis in the early going here. Now this is a little bit of a, I guess there's now a bit of a lull here. Everybody's just trying to find their feet. There's no real, I guess, aggressive moves going on. Feeling nicely strung out. You've got the 2 leaders that are well off in the distance, and then you've actually got Lockie Lock, who's moved up to 3rd place in all of this argument. He's now being passed by Brendan Foley, who started P3. Oop, a little bit of contact between the 2 of them there. And this will be argued down to turn number 2.
Yeah, it was a bit of a cheeky move from Foley there. He definitely had the right to bomb it in there, but I think he probably carried a bit more speed than one of the Lou was going to, because the further you go to the inside at turn 1 at Sandown, the bumpier it gets. And for these guys, not running with any sort of ABS assistance that you might get in, say, GT3 cars, you have to be very good with your right or your left foot, your braking foot, to get the car slowed down without getting a lock at any point across those bumps. And the further you go across, the harder it gets. Foley, I think, in trying to modulate the braking, just meant he carried more speed into the corner, and what was probably supposed to be a little bit of maybe a run alongside Lockie Lock turned into a bit of a block pass on Lockie Lock, which I don't think he was too much of a fan of. But these guys have both been around the traps for a few years. They know that your race isn't decided on lap 6. So Lockie's, he'll get him back, but he's not going to rush to do it this lap. And as we mentioned before with Kurt Stenberg and with some of these guys to think about in general, it's going to be there's multiple stops that are going to be seen in this race. The tyres are going to barely probably last a quarter of the race. Doing things too aggressive, like we've just seen there, is going to hurt your tyres and ultimately impact your ability to be flexible with race strategy.
Yeah, that's right. What Foley's just done there is checked up the entire train, and now Steele Allison and Donald are right on the back of this group here. And I tell you what, Stenberg and Speck are not far off joining them. So we'll wait and see how all that comes together. But you're right, Brody. The bit that's going to be rather interesting to be observing here as at Speck going and just leaving the door open for Stenberg there. Thinking about it from a strategic point of view. That's when we get into our a little bit of a moment coming down the hill here.
McDonald were too wide coming down the hill. That was brave. They were too wide through 6, which normally isn't the advised move. They're still too wide. They've only just, I think it was still us maybe defending from McDonald there, but real energetic fight from the 2 youngsters there.
Yeah. Well, you don't really want to be getting aggressive this early, because it's going to start to hurt when it gets down to when you want to get to your minimum laps counted before you need to do a tyre stop. Now, McDonald's got some overlap here, and I think if he stays with it, he should be firmly down the inside. And yeah, still Allison's got a little room here, and they will run through a little bit of rubbing. I tell you what, that was very close to being some wheel-to-wheel contact there. You don't want that this early. It'll rip the wheel out of your hands if you get too aggressive there. Now Stenberg's lining up to have a little bit of a go. We'll pause on what we were just going to have a bit of a chat about for a very brief moment, as there's a sideways Murrell in the background there, because this is starting to, I guess some of the fighting, Rhodey, has just started to play a part for the likes of Stenberg, who are starting to come through the field, because the train is getting checked up. The more that everybody fights, the slower you are, and the more time that the drivers that are trying to catch up to you will take out of that advantage in a very much shorter space of time. And that's precisely what's happening here. Now Stenberg's right on the rear boot lid of the 24.
He is, but it kind of goes both ways. Seeing a yellow flag up, and it's for Brendan Dawson was actually just pulled over and retired, so maybe some more issues for him, given he was lapped by that point.
Yeah.
For McDonald's still Allison, by all means, they're battling, helping Kurt Stenberg catch up. But if they need to battle, which they're not doing now, which is why Stenberg's just fired down the inside.
Yep.
Almost made that clean.
Well, I was about to say at the same time that we were just looking at Lewis Wedding going down the inside of Lockie Lock. We unfortunately didn't time that one well, but yes, you're absolutely right. So not only did Stenberg get through on Steele Allison, but Speck got through as well.
Yeah, Speck was just floating back there, and Steele Allison off the track, he was able to slide on through. But while the battling does allow the likes of Stenberg to catch up quicker, if you're battling at the point where they're coming to pass you, then it actually slows them down, because Stenberg, definitely he's got the skates on, but he's a pretty wise competitor. He's not going to try and make it 3 wide somewhere where 3 wide doesn't work, and there's a lot of places around here where 3 wide wouldn't work. So the defensive strategy to a point is to battle, but it's trying to pick your time when to battle. And I think for Steele Allison and McDonald did it about 3 laps too early. Where if they're doing it now, they really could be checking up Stenberg and ultimately improving their opportunities or their luck in the race. But as it sits, Steele Allison back to 9th, partially through the assistance of Stenberg, and he probably feels a little bit annoyed by the way that one played out. There was in a few moves, unfortunately, in one where what was probably supposed to be a nice little side-by-side move to turn into a bit of block pass to go on the inside has had to extend their braking thanks to the bumps. But yeah, Stenberg now is going to be, he's trying to get in the back of McDonald. McDonald, I think, is actually taking advantage of the fact that he's not having to deal with Steele Allison anymore, and he's actually trying to, and he has, caught up to the next train, which is Lewis Wedding and Lockie Lock.
Yeah, that's right. So he's tried to break away here now that Steele Allison's not all over the rear bar, and that's sometimes what the situation is. It's just once you get into that clear air, we talk about clear air a lot, we talk about it in real life as well. Clear air can be the best thing for a car. You've got nobody around you but yourself, so you can focus on the apexes. You're not distracted by trying to follow the car in front and what they do, because sometimes what they do in front or around you impacts what you do. So if they make a mistake, you and I have both victims of this as well, Rody. You're following someone, they make a mistake in front of you, going, great, I'm going to capitalise on this, and then you make exactly the same mistake.
Yeah, it's kind of the, to a degree, it's the whole strategy about why do people crash into very obvious things. It's because they were watching the thing they were trying to avoid rather than looking where they wanted to go. Because they were looking at the thing they wanted to avoid, they were actually looking where they were going to go. But yeah, it's one of those things where you can lock in and you can be so fixed on what the guy in front of you is doing because they're faster than you, and you want to catch them. You want to see where their weaknesses are, so you can get a pass done. All it takes is the guy in front under that pressure that you're putting on them to bowl it wide, and you're just so affixed to their rear bumper that you just follow them off.
That's right. So for McDonald, he's now all over the rear boot lid here of the number 237 for Lockie Lock, and Lock's just starting to struggle a little bit just in this mid-phase of the opening stint here. And McDonald's has got the eyes on here as well. So Lock was a little bit slow off of turn 4. That's what's really brought this margin down in the last sort of 2 kilometres worth of racetrack of the 3.1 kilometre circuit. Wedding is not hanging around either. He's definitely trying to put some time in and trying to catch up to Foley, and he was a good 0.3 of a second quicker, 0.4 of a second quicker nearly actually on the previous lap to Foley. So that's trending the right direction for him. And he was only 0.2 of a second slower than Noah Turra, who's currently in second place. That margin now starting out in front to get a little bit larger than it was in the early going. And Stenberg hasn't been able to make the progress just yet, so he's still tracking along quite nicely here. I think that I wouldn't be surprised here, and I think maybe Stenberg might actually be looking at driving to a little bit of a number now. He's probably had to chew up a little bit of tyre to get through on some of these cars, as we get a bit of a dicey moment down here into turn number 6 with Lock having to leave some room for the 59, and he just hangs on to that. And now can he get a better drive out of Dandenong Road for Damon McDonald? He's going to send one up the inside here. Lock's actually going to cover that line and cover it fairly early, so he telegraphed that one straight away and gave Damon plenty of warning that nope, he was not going to have a shot at going down the inside into turn number 11 and 12, but you get the sense that it's not far away.
No, you're talking about Stenberg, and that's probably a good point. The last lap through, actually the last couple of laps through, he's been probably a couple of tenths off of the pace of the 2 in front of him. Just doing enough to keep him clear of Luke Speck, but I think, Stenberg knows this is probably it's going to be probably, it's the estimation say it's going to be a 4th stint race. I know a couple of guys reckon they can go shorter than that, but realistically you're going to struggle. Tyres, from what I was informed from Specky, was that you're going to be getting about 19 and 24 laps out of a set of tyres. So on that basis, we're already probably past the halfway point. So a lot of the tyres, as McDonald again trying to make this happen, and Lockie Lock's doing a good job keeping with him there. He had a couple of moments there where he wanted to get away from him. But what that has done actually is brought Stenberg into this battle. And Stenberg actually, thanks to that, he's been able to push himself up past Lucky Lock. So Lucky Lock now falling back to 8th. It's actually brought more than Stenberg into this. It's brought Spec, it's brought Steel Allison, and Murrell's now floating in the back of that train as well. I will quickly say, if you are talking together, I'm not hearing you.
Yeah, sorry, I was having a bit of a just having to sort something out in the background there for the moment. But yeah, just thinking about it there. So Stenberg had enough of a margin over Luke Speck that he was the only one of the two that was able to slip through on Lock when Lock inevitably stayed with it for too long. And that's sort of crucial now, because have a look at this, because now as McDonald tries to edge away, now Stenberg's going to send this right around the outside. Nope, that's a little bit too wide there, and now he's got to cover the line down here into turn number 9, but he doesn't. Lock bombs it in there. Mirror cap, second mirror cap goes flying in as many laps down there at Dandenong Road, and Lock bails out of it. That checks everybody else up. Steel Allison's going to have a little bit of a look around the outside of Luke Speck here. That sends the left mirror cap on the number 13 flying as well. So it's all starting to get a bit willing here. Murrell might just come along and swoop the pair of them. He's got Speck down the inside here on the run to turn number 1. Is he going to be brave enough to send it on Steel Allison? I don't think so. He'll probably just pick the one spot off. He stays with it, and he has to command the space, and Speck has to oblige with him there. But it's not over yet, because the inside running goes down here to turn number 2, and Murrell has to bail to the grass.
I'd say he's probably burnt a cut doing that as well, looking at the... he gave up some time to Spec, but I'm not sure it would have been enough for the stewards in doing so. There's possibly a cut burnt there for Murrell, which is going to hurt as well. They do have a little bit more to work with than a regular sprint race tonight, but we don't know quite how much. I know that I got pretty close to the limit last week. Actually, no, I went past the limit last week, but I don't remember how much that was. I know it's more than usual. But for these guys, they really don't want to be burning them this early in the race.
No, you certainly don't. You've got to have them up your sleeve just in case you actually legitimately make some mistakes and you have to use them for those sorts of purposes. So getting quite willing in that pack at the moment, and it's really getting to the point in time where you're going to have to start thinking about some of the pit strategy, and it's all, as you said, all been kicking off behind the lead group of the lead 4 cars. So Devonish and Tara, well, Devonish has really rocked away to a healthy margin at the moment. Actually, Tara with a really poor lap the last time around. It was a 14.6 for Noah Tara, and that's just ballooned that margin out to 7.5 seconds. So that's bordering on the ridiculous this early. Devonish is just a bit of a metronome at the moment. Foley in 3rd, and then Wedding in 4th, but then the Angry Pack's sort of starting to catch him up. Let's have a look at the fact sheet, with thanks to Pallet Control Solutions for Sandown. So you can see there the 81 laps, and the fact it's a 3 kilometre circuit, that's not the issue in question here. The pit stop count, yep, absolutely. There's guaranteed to be at least a 3-stopper tonight. There was a bit of a toss-up in the development series if it was going to be 3 stops or 2 stops, and some went one way and some went the other, so it was possible then. Don't know how many there's going to be tonight, but at least looking likely there's going to be 3 at the minimum. There's your fuel burn figures, somewhere in the range of around the 4.5 to 4, just sort of north of 4.5 per lap. And it's a soft tyre compound, mandated soft tyre compound to mimic the distance of sort of like a 500 kilometre race in a 250. We actually want to see some pit stops and things going on.
Also, just speaking of those, we do have what I believe would be our first competitive stop, given where he was running down McDonald's in at the end of lap 16.
That's actually fairly early, I would have thought, Rody.
That is very early, yes.
Yeah, so
that indicates maybe, I don't know, maybe the way he was racing, maybe the tyre wear went too hard, but what he has put himself in the position of, he might be looking at 4 stops if this is indicative of where his tyre wear is at.
Yeah, so I mean, you can just block it there and sort of go, he's in at end of lap 16, you do another 16 that gets you to 32, you do another 16 that gets you to 48, and then if you do another 16 after that, you get to 64, so you end up, and then from there you should be able to do 17 and get home to 81, so... yep, that's definitely a 4-stop strategy in my book if you're going that early. But you've also got to be fast too, Rody. That's the thing. It's a 40k an hour pit lane transit just alone. in the lane, and there's at least a good 20 to 25 seconds chewed up just transiting pit lane. It's a long time being stationary if you need to fill the tank and put the tyres on. It's close enough to 25 to 30 seconds, so you're stationary for the better part of a minute. And it's very stationary. You're in the pits for a better part of a minute, and it's very easy to go a lap down.
I will say you might not actually be that far off, because of 1 lap later, in comes Will Devonish, in has just also come Cam Rutledge. So I get the impression these cars are burning through tyres quicker than they thought they might be.
Well, that's an interesting side note, because it does reveal that Noah Tara in the lead of the race. So let's see what he does.
On the lane as well.
Yeah, let's see what he does this time around. As McDonald, we've seen him go through, and Will Devonish has been in and taken service. So too Scott Murrell, Cam Rutledge over in now, and Tara's in the lane as well. Okay, so 4 stops for some of the drivers might very well be the order of business. So I did say we were guaranteed to get at least 3. Well, a couple of drivers maybe not wanting to take the risk with 3, thinking that, well, we're quick enough for 4. Oh, there's a car that's just 2 with the gravel trap there. That's Luke Newing, the SES Shogun, number 17. And I think this is just a little bit of a, maybe just run a little bit long into the braking zone at turn number 9. Like he was okay at the top of the hill here. And I think he's just locked the brake coming down the hill here. Oh, yeah, he has too. Oh, he actually gave the wall quite a thump as well. So that's a bit of a nasty ride for him. Hopefully be able to keep that going. I'd say car probably not too far off being in the lane to get repaired. And yeah, spot on.
In the lane now.
Yeah, spot on call. He's into the lane, repairs, wasn't too far from home. So getting that stop done, as Noah Tara, who has pitted, has gone past him. And that margin actually come down a little bit, so that's a bit of a surprise. Like, it was out to 7, nearly 8 seconds between Tara and Devonish. It's now down to around 6.5, so Tara's actually gained through the pit stop sequence there as well. So that's important for him. But now it's starting to go back the other way as the laps sort of tick off. So at the head of the field now, Brenton Foley, Lewis Wedding, Kurt Stenberg. So this is now I guess critical time for them. Can they break this up into a 3-stop race and save themselves a bit of time in pit lane, save themselves the better part of a minute in terms of race time? And a minute's a lot, Brody. It's not like we're talking, it's a short circuit. The lap times are, maybe a couple of tenths of difference between the drivers, but a minute going through the pit lane could be a huge coup if you can save that amount of time, if you can make a 3-stop work.
It could be. I just want to quickly note as well, we lost the Newing in the last 30 seconds or so. I'm going to guess maybe that maybe the gravel trip we saw might have been a symptom of a wider issue. But unfortunately, he's out of this race. But yeah, for the guys at the front of this battle pack now, and I'm surprised that to include Brenton Foley in the list of guys that are tyre saving, given what we normally see the 074 up to. But yeah, I think of these guys running at the pace they're at, like if they can push themselves out to a comfortable 3-stop strategy, they're in the box seat. They're still relying on essentially everyone else around them to keep it clean, which we saw the Dev Series guys did struggle with. Look, the way this race goes, it could be long enough for it to happen. We do have just seen actually coming up to the back of the queue is now Brendan Ross. Or, sorry, is the back of the queue, but Foley's coming up to the back of him. But he's just starting to peel away now. So Ross will have just been in for tyres. So
yes, he has. He's
probably the early marker, well, he is the earliest marker, I would argue, for a mathematical 3-stop. He's going to have to make 21 laps on the set of tyres somewhere here, having made 20 on this first set, but that does include the outlap, whether that matters for some of these guys, and the race start, whether that matters. But yeah, from here on, if you can push out to be pitting this lap and the next couple of laps onwards, and I think Foley probably is in this lap, really good position to try and make a 3-stop out of this. And I think really, bar a safety car, that's probably going to make the difference, because
Lockie Lock.
Losing.
Moment, sorry, Brody.
Yep.
Moment for Lockie Lock at the top of the hill. He's gone and done a big slide job and a big pirouette coming down the hill there. And I'm not sure if he's been into pit lane in the last little bit. I don't believe he has. But he had quite the wild ride coming down from Dandenong Road. And he actually did this one all on his own by the looks of things. So he had Stenberg in front of him, who was in third. He was running in fourth with Speck behind him. Here you go. Look at that. Car just completely got away from him at the rear.
Yeah, it doesn't look like doesn't look like it's been a puncture, just checking the
Overcommitted.
car out. But yeah, probably just overcommitted where the tyres were at, and it was a good job to
Yeah, in the lane now. Yep, so he's in the lane along with Kurt Stenberg, and I think that might be Lewis Wedding, who's
Lewis
in
Wedding
there,
and Brenton Foley.
and Brent Foley. So the whole entire top handful of cars are in there, as we see the fastest lap of the race set by Noah Tara. Now Foley leaves the lane. He comes out in 6th place. Murrell is going to round him up. Now Murrell's already stopped as well, so this now illustrates where the 3 stoppers are at versus the 4 stoppers. The fact that Murrell, who had a poor first lap by that incident, has been able to catch back up, has gone already and had service, and he's now jumped Brenton Foley in the process, who was 3rd. Lewis Wedding, who was in there as well, he's actually come out 9th on the road. Stenberg behind him, and Cam Rutledge as well has jumped up the order here. So this has jumbled quite a few of the cars here. I think Wedding actually has come out with a lucky one here. He's gotten out just ahead of this little battle between Steele Allison and Rutledge, and has left Stenberg to try and find a way past these two, who are in their own little private combat here up to turn 6.
Cam's a lot more forgiving, a lot more polite, a lot more gentlemanly about it, I'd argue, maybe than Damon McDonald was with Steele Allison, a stint before. Very much, I think. I'm not actually sure where Cam is in the strategy. I think they have both been to the lane. They're just running probably slightly different strategies, maybe. Rutledge was much more forgiving of the 2 cars around him, probably given that he didn't maybe doesn't quite feel like he's going to match them on pace. But he's got a good job now where he can just tuck in behind them and try and pick up on some pace that way. Yeah.
So the only 2 drivers yet to take some service, Luke Speck and Curtis Igmanis, they're going super long in this. So I got a funny feeling they're trying to hold out for a safety car in this early going, but I don't think they're going to see one. We haven't seen one yet, despite the 2 non-finishers. It came out in the development series almost perfectly timed for a 2-stop strategy.
It did, yeah, which is really unfortunate for those guys that are committed to a 3-stop. But I think maybe for Speck's argument, and Igmanis is still going around, maybe it won't buy them into a safety car now, but it does buy them into a position where they've got a bit more wiggle room should one come out later in the race by having done this long first stint. I'm not sure if the plan is for Speck to continue to do a long first stint, continue to do long stints. I know that when we talked about a 3-stop, he said you want to bet, or something to that effect, and Specs, if anyone could, that'll be pit lane speeding for Ben Hall.
Yep, so he's out. Yep, he's just left the lane.
Look, he's going to have to do a bit of work from here, Spec, given he's going to try and make up 6 or 7 laps somewhere.
Here he comes out the lane now, so he's
going to be a tight run.
He's going to come out right behind Kurt Stenberg and ahead of Cam Rutledge, albeit temporarily, because Cam's going to go through ahead here as well. So that's interesting, the fact that these 2 pitted a couple of laps apart, going for a 3-stop strategy, Stenberg and Speck, and despite the older tyres, the service that Rutledge did and that Steele Allison's doing for Stenberg has actually kept that gap at somewhat of a reasonable distance between the 2 Camaros, the number 13 and the number 1.
Yeah, that was probably a bit more of luck than good planning for Specky, though. I don't think Specky's concern as to a battle is with Stenberg in this race. But he's been lucky there and that sort of checked him up. But yeah, realistically, I think we've seen some of these guys already assuming similar strategies and similar wait times in the lane. The undercut's pretty strong. Yeah, that's right. So Stenberg now pulls the trigger on Steele Allison, going up and over the hill and down to turn number 9, which is Dandenong Road, and now he can try and disappear up the road, see if he can mow down Lewis Wedding, who's up there in 7th place. So it's going to take a little while for this to shake out, so you're going to keep in mind who's actually done the going for the 3-stop strategy, who's going for the 4-stop strategy. We don't know what the strategy is for Curtis Igmanis at the moment. He was 11th in the order when they started this race. He is still going at the moment and coming around to complete his 25th lap, which is a bit of a remarkable achievement, and now he finally pulls the trigger and is in. So this is definitely a 3-stop strategy for him, but if cards fall right, you actually won't be able to convert this into a 2. There's no way. But going very long in the first stint, and then maybe trying to look at how to break up the remaining 2 pit stops
in line with everything else. So that sees him right. And through goes Devonish, through goes Noah Turra. It'll be really interesting now just to see where he is relative to everybody else that's already been in and taken service. So Stenberg and Steele Allison going through 10th place Luke Speck and 11th place Rutledge, even 12th place Daniel Cox now going through on all of this, and still no movement from the CRE engineering stable, and they haven't released that car yet, and he's now falling down through the order, and he finally comes out. He's going to come out P14, but he actually, so he's actually quite clear of Steve Warwick, and the car behind him, Ben Hall, is a lap down in 16th. So for Igmanis, that's going a little bit too long there, I think, has cost him a bit. But the next question is, what does he do with the next 3 stints? He's got 2 more stops to do. Is this now a real, he's got 25 laps out of a set of tyres. Is he going to really push like crazy here and do a couple of shorter stints and maybe make up that deficit? It's going to be a bit of a tall ask, considering that there's not a lot of time around this place that you can gain, given the nature of the circuit.
It's one of those things, and I'm talking mathematically rather than what's perhaps possible in the real world, talking from a theoretical point of view. But having made 25 laps on a set of tyres, he's only going to, or out of the car, he's only going to make another 6 laps past that. What I'm saying is, under 1 safety car, that's an impossibility. Under 2, with the right roll, it's possible to get 6 laps for free somewhere. It wouldn't be for free, you'd still be burning like a lap or 2 worth of fuel, but if fuel wasn't the issue, if it was tyres was the issue, you can pretty easily save tyres under a safety car. It is really rolling the bank hard on, there being multiple safety cars to make it work, but if he's committed to the strategy, it's a possibility to work. And I can to a degree respect where he's been at, where maybe things didn't quite go your way in qualifying, and you're really just right, what's the alternate strategy? How far out of the box can I go with thinking? And just, just to try and spice up the race, I'll just commit to doing that instead. Yeah. He's asking a lot of the guys around him, and these are on paper going to be the cleanest races that we have in ASR. In practice, not always the case, but on paper, they are the cleanest races. So to get 2 safety cars out of this field, it's possible, but not likely.
No, not at this current rate. It's not unlikely that it's unlikely it's going to happen. Let's go back and have a look, because there was a good battle heating up for P3 here. Scott Murrell, who stopped rather early. He's on the 4-stop strategy. Foley's on the 3-stop strategy. And Foley's got some fresher tyres underneath him in that 074, and he had a real red-hot go at Scott Murrell at turn number 1. So he's motoring along here. Damon McDonald's not too far behind either. If he can get his skates on, he's actually doing similar times. He's actually just shortcut the circuit there. That'll be a track strike. And he's got similar times to Scott Murrell, who's very, very loose at the moment. Foley did a personal best last time out with an 8.8. So he is definitely trying to make a good fist of this here, and Murrell is starting to feel the heat, I think, Brody, because he's a little bit loose in a couple of corners. Foley's got some much better drive traction. This is what happened last time around. He got a very, very good exit out of the last corner, and he had a little bit of a go there. It was almost like Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, like he was actually a little bit locked up going into turn number 1 on the previous lap. And just avoid hitting the back of Murrell. He's not tried to pull that move this time, but the former champion is looking racy here, and he wants his 3rd place back.
He is, yeah. Look, the way things are going strategy-wise, it is very much in Foley's court, as in Foley's and in Weddings and in Stenberg's court, as to the way this race goes. They're still got to really, to a degree, they do have to actually catch these guys on track. It's like the base of the difference is like going to be 30-40 seconds that they're going to make up. So in theory, as things sit right now, the way things are going to play out, Foley could win from here without having to actually pass anybody on track. But this is Foley. This is somebody who's won this championship before. There's somebody who's been driving in this series ever since we first ran Sandown. He's not going to sit there and idle around behind Murrell if he feels he's quicker than him. That said, he's just given Murrell a pretty healthy tow down the straight. Murrell, I think, thinking better of it, though, rather than trying to send a bomb into one. But look, it probably benefits to a degree. Probably benefits Murrell to try and get Foley to wear out his tyres, given that Murrell's running shorter stints than Foley is. But for Foley, yeah, it's probably just trying to get into a comfortable space, and maybe for Foley, he's much more comfortable running around in clean empty air than having to follow a car around the entire stint.
You just got a good illustration there from Scott Murrell's perspective, looking over his left shoulder, at just how well Foley got off of turn number 4 by not taking as much curb and just making sure he managed to get all 4 tyres on the ground as quickly as possible and then plant the foot. And then you saw the illustration of the toe that Foley gave him up the back chute because of how close Murrell actually was. And even then, a little mistake for Foley going down to Dandenong Road, then Murrell was all over him. Now, can he return some serve here? I'm with you, Rhodey. If I'm Murrell, I'm going to sit there and I'm just going to let Foley tow me around for a little bit, because I know that the tyres are a little bit older, so it's going to be very easy to make a mistake. And if you do, you might turn some of those tyres into a 50-cent piece, and then you've got to carry it for the rest of the stint until you get to the pit stop. So then it becomes a bit of a problem.
Yeah, so it's sort of the big picture thinking, I think. Also just trying to make the race itself enjoyable. I know we've had discussions before where there's been an option for a race that's been, this is the enjoyable strategy, or this is the one that's going to win the race. And oftentimes you actually go for the one that's, at least in our line of thinking, for the one that's enjoyable, because you actually want to enjoy your night of racing. He's in a position now where he's on the winning strategy, but he does still have a little bit of wiggle room here or there to try and make it one that he might actually enjoy running as well, rather than just having to try and run to a number the entire race.
Well, apart from him, is he just wants to make sure, he just wants Murrell to go away. I think that's probably the important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wants him to go away because he wants to run this 3-stop strategy and be able to run it without the pressure from underneath, without sort of de-risking the situation is what I like to call things these days. You take all the risk out of doing it. For Murrell, I guess he'll be expected to be in the lane somewhere in the next 8 or 9 laps. And for Foley, he's going to go probably another handful of laps beyond that again, probably out to somewhere around, the mid to high 40s in terms of a lap time or lap count before we see him in the lane again. Well, that'll help because Murrell's just made a mistake at the turn 2-3 chicane. He actually bicycled the car through that chicane, so that's now opened the gap up a little bit more. It actually puts McDonald into range of a tow here coming up the back straight, so might be a little while now, and you might see the 59 start to make an assault on the sister car in the stable. And well, Rhodey, I don't know if there's any team orders or not. You might be able to fill me in on that one when it comes to these two.
I don't know. I think, to be fair, the arrangement to put Murrell in the Callahan car tonight was a bit of a last-minute call. They're not under the CRE banner. It's LMR by SES. Sorry, this is just LMR blanket. But LMR, as of this point, I know historically it has run with CRE affiliations. As of this year, at least, they're running under SES affiliations, if anything. Murrell's kind of just there because it's a spare car to fill. He has driven for them before. I get the impression that it's very much of a muchness. They're both competing arguably full-time in the driver's standings. The difference is Noel's doing it for this team, whereas Murrell's just kind of doing it for himself. Might be an argument that McDonald goes through if it's a quicker car, but I get the impression they're probably going to be sitting somewhere together to actually orchestrate this in a clean manner, as opposed to the battle he's having with Foley, which, it's a competitor. You wouldn't necessarily try and worry about it being a clean battle, but look, if it comes to it, I think it will. But that said, now that he's had the chance to try and get some laps back in, he's starting to kind of, the margin isn't coming down all that much between Murrell and McDonald. So I don't think that's a discussion they're going to have to worry about having for a little while yet anyway.
No, not just yet. Another discussion that's going to, that you and I are going to have right now is around 6th place, because we've got Lewis Wedding here, who's trying to catch up to the back of Foley, but now that Foley's managed to make his way through and is back into 3rd place, Wedding sort of just, he's just trying to make, I guess, the strategy work here, but Stenberg's starting to range into view here, so he's a good 2 or 3 tenths of a second quicker over the last couple of laps, and it won't be too long before he's on the back of the 666 and starting to threaten for 6th place. Now, we know what Lewis is like. He's a competitor, and he likes to win, and he likes to to compete. And I don't know if he'll want to do Kurt Stenberg any favours here, knowing that Kurt's currently, third or fourth in the championship. He's up the pointy end, and Lewis is re-entering the series after an absence of 12 months. What are your thoughts on this, Matt? It's great to have him back, by the way. It's sometimes it's good just to go away and clear your head and get on with life, I guess, a little bit sometimes, because that's what we all need to do. But you never ever lose your competitive instinct.
No, it's something that I think some of the guys, maybe it's sort of his end of the, not so much of the field, but maybe of just the experience of the racing. I mean, Lewis is, it's a hard one for some of us to picture sometimes. I've just seen Scott Morrell's in services pretty early, but that aligns with his strategy from so far. But for Wedding, he's been racing for nearly, or I think about as long as Kurt Stenberg has, which is a bit of a throw for us in ASR, because Lewis has been here since more or less day dot, and a lot of us, especially those that came after the league started, sort of pictured Lewis as just being an ASR driver, but he's run on AMS and on R-Factor 1 for many years at this point. He's very much at the point where you could maybe argue to a degree his best days maybe behind him, but he's got himself in a position where he's now running more full-time in leagues that suit his driving style and preference better. He's running 90s F1 on, I think it's a Sunday morning at like 5 a.m, which for an Australian is a brave man, but that's the price you have to pay being Australian, trying to race internationally in sim racing. But he's in a good spot there, and he's actually going to come back primarily because we're doing a collaboration at this point with VSU and VFU on running a 90s Group A series that's starting, I believe, this weekend. For Lewis, I think he needed the time out of the seat, because he was getting to the point with Gen 3 where he wasn't enjoying the cars, and he and I actually had a chat a few weeks ago at an event where we managed to run into each other, and it sort of mellowed, I think, his thoughts on things than where they were 12 months ago. Obviously, he left for a reason, and it was probably a good reason. He needed the time off. He had been sort of under the pump and had his foot on the throttle for 5 or 6 years of his time here, and trying to be competitive and keeping up as the admin and everything and all that, and it just kind of got too much for him, I think, at one point. But he's able to come back now, and it's not like Ross is still an admin, but Ross is probably in the same boat where Ross was under the pump for a few years. The pressure kind of got to him a little bit too much, and he needed time off. He's now kind of gone back to running full-time as the third driver of PBF, but he's in the position now where he can do it for fun rather than doing it with any other expectation. And I think for Wedding, look, he probably recognises the stats of the argument that Stenberg is a 3-time champion, and for Lewis, it's been a while since he's found a fact himself isn't a champion. Stenberg's been racing all year. Lewis is back for the first time in 12 months. But this is the same man who put on an offensive drive from, I think, about lap 4 of a 20-lap Albert Park race just to maintain, I think it was 6th position or something. So if he puts his mind to it, Wedding could make this a little bit of hell for Stenberg, and arguably, I know they're on track right now for 2nd and 3rd. Arguably, Wedding is actually fighting right now for 2nd on the track, because as the strategy way plays out, it's going to be Foley with a good sort of maybe 10-second lead over everyone else. If these guys can stick with him, they're in that bargain as well. But I will say, with no lap traffic, I think those headlights from Lewis Wedding were just saying to Stenberg, I'm not putting up this fight. Yep, that's a strategy call. That's just a camaraderie call, and it's a strategy call because they're trying to play the long game here, I think, a little bit as well, because they're probably not far away from looking at when they want to come in and do their pit stops. So we've actually just seen as well the likes of Will Devonish and Noah Tara and Scott Murrell have all been in. They've all taken their 2nd service, so definitely the 4-stop strategy still very much in play for them as they go around. Now, Brenton Foley leads this race and leads it quite comfortably by 7.4 seconds. Let's see what Kurt Stenberg has got in store for the PBF Race Engineering Camaro, if indeed there is anything that's going to come of it. So Foley's got very close to about 2/3 of the back straightaway. You'll start to see probably Stenberg just start to appear in the back of some of these shots, as we see him at the moment. So margin it's just on 7.4 seconds, and then down the hill into Dandenong Road for the 38th time. So we're getting pretty close now to half distance. So
A lot of these drivers have already done a couple of stops. The yellow flag up here in final sector. I think that might have been for Cam Rutledge, who maybe just had a little moment at the final chicane. He's actually been in and taken his second stop as well. So that has, or it was either him or it was Steve Warwick. It was one of the two that was up there. One of them was the cause of that yellow flag. There's Stenberg in the background there, so you can see there about 2/3 or so of the front straight as a margin as Foley's made a big match. That's a big mistake actually there as well. Hold on, Cowboy. It's that's a bit of a bucking bull there. I know it's got the Red Bull on the side, but she jumped sideways in a big hurry there. That's a compression lock on the downshift if you've ever seen one.
It is, yeah. Look, Foley's in a position, if we just look at the stats, but I know the stats won't matter when they get to within racing distance of each other, and that won't probably happen this stint. It's probably going to come at the back end of the race. But for what it matters, Foley in this race so far has had a faster lap than Stenberg. It's to the tune of about 3/10. Oh, sorry, I've looked at that math wrong. Sorry. Correction. Sorry, I saw my numbers wrong. Other way around, sorry. Stenberg has the fastest lap by 2/10, actually just over 1/10. Last lap through, not this lap, obviously counting that at 1/10 difference as well. But Foley probably has done enough. Well, I wouldn't say he's done enough. With the laps left to go, the difference might only be a 10th here and there, but that's going to add up, and we've still got the best part of half this race to go. 40 laps times half a second. You're getting pretty close. Or a 10th of a second, you're getting pretty close to the point where the 5-second gap becomes nothing, or at least becomes a position where Stenberg is close enough to then put Foley under pressure and make him make more mistakes and slow down. Foley's, I think, done the best job that he can do. He probably could have hoped that Wedding would have put a bit more of a fight there, but it's one of the things you got to learn, and it's something that I'm struggling with this year, is learning that you're the only one, you only have control of your own destiny. You can't control the other guys on track to make things work well for you. As Foley nearly, that was almost a reverse entry into turn 6. So I think tyres are starting to get a little bit off for him, which isn't good because he's still got another 6 or 7 laps, I think, to go on these tyres before he's going to want to pit again. Yep. So that's not a good look.
I was just trying to get a handle on when he was next due into the lane, because I was looking at it going, you talk about fate and not being able to control your own destiny and stuff like that. Well, the destiny for the moment was really looking really good for him, because Will Devenish was getting held up by Steele Allison and Luke Speck here. So he's now trying to make his way through on the pair of them. Now, Specky really probably should be trying to fight this as much as he can, because this will start to ruin the strategy for Will Devenish and really make the 4-stop strategy a real problem in his side. There goes Brendan Ross. He's actually just left the lane as well. That's the sister car to Brenton Foley. And, yeah, well, Speck's making this properly difficult now for Will Devenish. So if anything's going to go south for the current championship leader, this is where it's going to go south. This is a legitimate fight for position. They're on 2 different strategies. One's on much brand new tyres. The other one is on much older rubber, trying to make it into a 3-stop strategy. He's putting all the right dance moves on at the moment, so he's forcing the 15 to really think hard about what he's going to do. Is he going to go left? Is he going to go right? Is he going to try and put those tyres to good effect to go right around the outside? He goes really deep into the turn. Is he managed to get it pulled up for 7? He just gets it done. The car really wanted to wander wide there at the top of the hill, but somehow he kept his foot in the brake long enough and has come in, and Foley is now into the lane. So this is the moment for him. He's done a good stint on those tyres, and Stenberg follows. So they are in the lane at lap 41, and the 3-stop strategy is looking quite good for them at the moment.
3-stop strategy is looking good, but looking at how much they're closed up, they were running, wasn't quite line of stern. There was probably a good, effective couple of seconds between them in the pit lane compared to racing speed, but Stenberg's catching him. The fight's going to be on, probably coming, maybe not out of the lane, but a couple laps after that, the fight's going to be on then for Foley.
Stenberg's out.
No.
Stenberg's out in a hurry. Yeah, he's out in a hurry. I reckon that's a short fill. I reckon there's been a mistake. It's either been a damage repair or something's happened in the pit lane for Brenton Foley, because there was a good couple of seconds between them coming in, and Stenberg has jumped Brenton Foley in pit lane. That's very, very important for this race, because they're both on the 3-stop strategy, and well, how times have changed there. A misexecution for PBF Race Engineering in the lane, or have they gone a bit longer on the fuel? Did Stenberg get his fuel calculations right? Did he short fill it? What have you? We do not know. All we know is he has jumped Foley in pit lane. So that is a net, potentially a net race-changing lead there in pit lane. As Lewis Wedding, who led that race at the end of there, he now comes to the lane. That surrenders Will Devonish back into the lead of the race with Luke Speck in between the Devonish and Noah Turra, and we know Speck is on the three-stop strategy as well. A couple more drivers coming to the line that have got a bit of a mixture of hybrid pit strategies and things going on here. Murrell, who's done 2, and Egmanis, who's done 1, and I think Damon McDonald, I'm not sure if he's come back in for his second stop at all or not, but if he hasn't, he'll be quite close to doing a second stop.
I was just having a look at, we mentioned Wedding in the lane, just trying to see where he's going to drop out.
Oh dear, Marnus. He's very nearly did what Brad Vaughan did at Sandown last weekend, where he got it all wrong and went into the outside wall at turn number 3, albeit that one wasn't too bad. It's just taken the right-hand side mirror cap off the door, but oh God, that was very close to being a nasty incident if it hadn't have gone on a bit too much longer. Wedding has come out just ahead of Mitchell Steele-Allison, so for him, that's a positional change there as well. And again, he seems to have, there he is, he seems to have come out at precisely the right times to avoid getting caught up in anyone else's misdemeanors.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to do the mental math on what this means for on our strategy-wise presumptive podium sitters. I think Stenberg may be a slight underfill. I get the impression maybe Wedding. Maybe the feeling is they're going to take the pain somewhere between these 2 stops. Maybe the feeling is trying to throw more fuel in now, at least from Wedding's point of view, and he can pick up a little bit less later, and that can play the mind games as to all of a sudden where's this 5 seconds he's gained compared to the cars around him. Yeah, I think for Stenberg, he's maybe gone the other way, probably because he knew he'd better do better off if he just was ahead of Foley than having to pass Foley. And so he's probably gone the other way, where he's taken exactly what he needs to make it to the next stint and nothing more, maybe a little bit more for wiggle room. Yeah. But he hasn't gone in big fill to underfill later, which is what's put him ahead. So he might still have a longer pit stop left to go. Foley, I get the impression, somewhere in the middle. I don't think he went the big fill like Lewis. I don't think he's gone the only enough fill like Stenberg. I think he's put somewhere in the middle. So I don't know where in that sort of rubber banding that Lewis Wedding in theory should come up a little bit in the next stop. Stenberg should go down. I don't know where Foley's going to move within that. Well, let's have a look now, because Stenberg set a personal best last time around at 108.689. He's gone 2 greens in this last sector, and he just goes and sets the fastest lap of the race. So This is now starting to answer some of those questions. He's, I think maybe you're right. Maybe he's jumped the in pit lane. Maybe he's taken a little bit of a short fill. I thought it could have gone 2 ways. He's either going for a much shorter third stint and still be able to stay on the 3-stop strategy, or he was going to go with a short fill, and then by jumping Foley, he was in a position where he could, go hard out of some of these corners, but then he could lift and coast a little bit and start to recover some of the short fill of the fuel, and as you said, give him some of that buffer with the wiggle room. I'm starting to think now it's probably the former, which is he's gone with the short fill, and he's trying to lay down a handful of laps, knowing that he knows how far the tyres will last, and even if he takes a bit of pain, maybe comes in slightly earlier than the ideal lap time and the ideal pit entry time, that he still will be able to make it to the flag, and just by having to spend the extra second or 2 in pit lane to take on the extra fuel, he's actually looking to gain maybe 4 or 5 or 6 seconds out there on the track to make that jump over Foley permanent. Yeah, that, and to be fair, there could probably be an argument for him as well. Definitely, at least from where I'm sitting, with the expectation that I have of the delta time in the pit lane, like he is going to be passing Will Devonish on strategy easy peasy. I don't know whether he's confident with that, and whether, to be fair, maybe the strategy, maybe he knows he's going to get there, but he's trying to force Will in a position where maybe Will make sure that it's 100% without a doubt by pushing too hard and trying to go for a fastest lap somewhere and ruining his strategy, or just getting caught up in something and trying to throw some pressure on. I think maybe there's a bit of that too as well. Definitely trying to rubber stamp it over Foley, but also trying to make sure that Devonish knows that he's more or less, if things play out without safety car, then he's more or less not got a chance either.
Yeah, well, for Stenberg to make this work, he's got to pass Ekmanis pretty quickly, and I think he'll probably do it on the run down to turn number 1 because the 51 is starting to wander a little bit. There's evidence of it right there. He was well wide of the apex, and he's butchered that again there. Stenberg's actually through quickly in a flash, so those tyres are starting to go, and Ekmanis realises, oh, and he's made a mistake going into pit entry as well. He's not put the limiter on at the right time. That car it's in a real awkward spot. He gets it out. I wouldn't be surprised to see if he gets done for a pit lane speeding infringement there, because he definitely did not get the limiter on and get down to the speed limit before the car crossed that line. We will wait with bated breath to see what happens there for the 51. And well, he was trying the contra strategy anyway, going much longer than anybody else. It hadn't quite worked out. It kept him up the pointy end keeps elevating him, but then the drop-offs were quite sudden. So let's see what happens there. Oh, and for Murrell, he's actually had to shortcut the chicane there as well. That will burn a track strike for him, I'm sure. As Damon McDonald, the sister car, is starting to get his skates on here now. Keeping an eye out to see whether or not there was going to be any team orders in between here. But Murrell on the 4-stop and his teammate on the 3-stop. That will be an interesting decision there. And you can see there, Ekmanis just leaving the lane now. He's actually not got a penalty for that, so he's very lucky to avoid that. But he's been rounded up there by the 2 Luke McHugh Racing Mustangs, and that drops him all the way down to 14th is where he's come out on the road. So an extra handful of seconds for him. I mean, he was going to be 14th anyway, because Brendan Ross, who's just wandered very wide at the top of the hill, would have rounded him up anyway.
Yeah, he's sort of settled in position. That's the thing. He went 25 or maybe even 26 laps on this tyre. So I think at this point, Ekmanis is thoroughly locked into trying to make this a 3-stop race. He's still going to rely on something at the back end here. Maybe he sees where things are going. Maybe the different strategies, and people maybe, I wouldn't say not recognising different strategies, but very much trying to interfere with those strategies, as a way of putting it. That, you know, there's perhaps heightened chance for possibility of a safety car, but outside of lap 1, I think things have been pretty well behaved, and I don't think we've come anywhere near close risk. One of the closest we've had is some single car incidents where people have taken a bit too much through the 2-3 chicane, but that, and maybe I think it was Locke who went backwards at turn 6, but otherwise pretty clean race so far.
Yeah, apart from the opening little bit of lap carnage, which wasn't, I guess, a huge amount of carnage anyway. It was a fairly benign set of incidents. I mean, one of them we saw was, Murrell going around on his own was very benign. The one with Ben Hall, we're not quite sure what happened with that. And then you had, I think it was Luke Ewing, I think was probably taking some evasive action in all of it. They were the ones that were there. There's been very little mistakes otherwise, apart from people just wandering slightly wide of corner apexes and so on and so forth. But yeah, nearly 50 laps into this 81 lap affair, and it is very much a green flag race there. So this is now purely, it's on the drivers more so than anything now. Those that are on the 3-stop versus the 4-stop, they've got to find a way to make this work, and it's going to keep everybody guessing right until the flag here. Your race leader on screen here, coming up to the lap traffic. He's done 2 stops. Probably not far away from his 3rd, and the other drivers that are in front of him at the moment, some of these drivers are on they've done 2 stops, but they've got some time to go for their 3rd stop. So that's just showing you in evidence how much faster Devonish has been travelling compared to those that are on the 3-stop. But you've got to factor in that there's a good, close to a minute worth of pit stop activity that he has to tack on compared to everybody else. Down to the final couple of corners here. Locke, who was enjoying the highs of running in the top 6 at one stage, he's now fallen down to 12th. And as we talk about that, there is the 3rd stop for Will Devonish. So right on lap 50, so lap sort of 16, 32, 33 roughly, and at the end of lap 50. So he's been doing 16 to 17 lap runs, so that will put him somewhere in the realms of lap 67 for his final stop. And Ben Hall's come into the lane there as well.
as McDonald. I will say I was quite out slightly there when you tried to cut me last time. I was trying to figure out what happened to Murrell. I was trying to drop it through the timing train. I realised that was Tim Penning. But I was yeah, a little bit distracted trying to catch what happened to Murrell. But so yeah, he was in the last lap as well. And yeah, for some of these guys, so Noah Tara had stayed out, but effectively Will Devonish has actually gone through, and actually he's come out ahead of Wedding, and actually Ben Hall actually slightly caught out by his teammate, and actually I think one of his drivers, because Ben is the boss of Q Racing, so he has actually just been held up by Damon McDonald, so that'll be a fun team debrief.
Certainly will. And yeah, Will Devonish has actually been held up a little bit here by Steve Warwick, who's some lap traffic. So the sister car there to Lewis Wedding, who are actually doing him a little bit of a service here as well, hopefully giving Wedding a bit of time to close some of that margin down. Devonish should get this job done here up at turn 6. He'll be quite heavily committed under the braking with new tyres, and yeah, gets that car nicely down to the apex. Nothing like new tyres on a race car, Roddy. Plenty of grip, and that allows you to go offline and really get the car down to the apex, get the car stopped in the braking zone. Everything works well when it's on new rubber, but unfortunately can't be like that for the entire race. It does give up and it does go away, and you've got to come in and change those tyres if you want to go fast and you want to win races. And he's done that, just disappears off now towards Brenton Foley, who's actually moved up now into position number 2. Kurt Stenberg, for the first time tonight, leads the race, and since he got past Foley in the pit stop sequence, he's eked that margin out to an 8-second lead. Last lap for him was a 9 flat. He's got the fastest lap of the race down to an 8.1, which he's set in this stint. And at the moment, he's really just trying to punch out as many quick laps as he possibly can, knowing where the situation is. What a performance this would be if you can win from the rear of the grid. When was the last time we had a rear of grid winner? I'm going sort of all the way back here. I've got a funny feeling it would have been 2019, I'm going to guess. And I think, was it Mitch Hathaway in Adelaide? I think was the last time I remember seeing one. So it's been a long time we've seen a rear of grid winner.
I think it's happened since, because I can recall in the last couple of years us making a mention of that exact instance. But I know that, yeah, the first time and the last time that does come to memory at a glance was, Mitch Hathaway in, I think, the first race of the season at Adelaide, going last to first. The position Stenberg's in, I mean, like, from where they're all sitting right now, they all have to pit one more time. Some of them will be a little sooner than others. I expect we're going to see Stenberg and Foley and Wedding in fairly soon, whereas Devonish is going to be able to push a little bit longer. But they've all got to pit from here, and what this has worked out to be, it's kind of gone a little. The gap's a little smaller than I kind of figured it would be. It's put effectively the gap between first of the four stoppers to the first of the 3 stoppers is about 10 seconds.
Let's say, who was at the exited stage left there? It was one of the PBF cars, I think, a little bit wide there. It might have been Brendan Ross at turn number 1. We're just keeping an eye on some things here, because Scott Murrell and Luke Speck had a little bit of a moment down at Dandenong Road on the last lap, and now let's properly put Damon McDonald right on the rear of the number 06. Actually, it is just the number 6, sorry, not the 06. I think that was something from the other days there. Oh, big lock up for Murrell. He's going to go wide there, and hopefully it'll be the opening that McDonald needs, but no, not quite. Murrell somehow manages to gather that one up, and I'll tell you what, he's being sweated on here by his teammate, and so far he makes the mistakes like that. There's another one there. He just makes those mistakes, but they're not big enough. That's the thing. For Damon McDonald, they're just not big enough at the moment for him to really, truly capitalise on what's going on.
Yeah, he's not quite in the middle of all this as such, but in the same postcode is Specky, who's trying to run his own iteration, his own version of the strategy the race leaders are using at the moment. He'd probably very much like these guys to bugger off, because he's going to worry about his own tyre conservation. He doesn't really get caught up in these guys, or risk a long pit stop, because the two behind him have gone into a bit of a squabble and included him in it. But at this point, I don't think he has much say in the matter. He's got Murrell sniffing all over the back of him. And given the racing that's been happening between the two McHugh racing teammates, I think Murrell will be pretty keen to have Spec as a buffer zone.
I'll tell you what he is now, because he's gotten past him after that little moment that happened down here a couple of laps ago, and that's important because that was a high-risk move around the outside there, getting the move done in the braking zone and actually managing to get down to the apex as well. It was very well judged by Murrell. So he's got through there on the 13 of Spec, and importantly for Murrell, he'll probably be due in, I'd say in the probably about lap 64, I'm guessing, based on his current estimates, and that'd be his final stop through to the end of this race. Keeping an eye as well on Stenberg, because for a couple of laps the gap was pretty stable between himself and Brenton Foley, and now that Foley's made a bit of a mistake and has been passed by Will Devenish, that gap has now gone up to 8.8 seconds. So now we're going to start to see the old title combatants and how quickly they can go. So you can see Stenberg there has just gotten past Devenish's teammate in Curtis Igmanis, and a little bit further behind, here comes Will Devenish, has just cleared Brenton Foley. So between the two of them is Igmanis, followed by Rutledge, and then a whole bunch of clear air, and then comes the Valvoline number 15. So 8.4 seconds the margin, and of course the tyres in two completely different states. Devenish with some much fresher rubber. He's only got about 6 lap old tyres, where Stenberg is getting fairly close to what would be expected to be his final stop. And I think probably, Rody, when I look at it, I actually got a funny feeling that the third and fourth stops, so actually for Stenberg and for
yeah, there's going to be, assuming that the fuel tank will last, well, the fuel tank does last the length of the stints that Stenberg and Foley and Wedding have been running. They've both kind of got a bit of options as to when they run it. Stenberg's going to be more time critical to come in, but Devenish, yeah, it's kind of up to him. He's following the Carby around. He's following Stenberg around, so he's got enough warning to go, okay, I'm going to pit the same time as him for strategy.
Ooh, yellow flag. I was about to say down here at turn number 1 for a very brief moment. There's a couple of signboards that have been gone flying there as well. I'm just trying to work out who that is.
Oh, I think that is who's just retired from the race.
Yeah, so you're right.
That would have been Ben Hall deep at 1.
Yep, certainly would have been. So that answers that equation there. And oh yeah, there's actually worse than that. We've actually got a replay to come up on the screen and have a look at that one, because it was yeah, quite the off, let's put it that way. I actually think this is a catastrophic failure of some nature, because there actually wasn't some signs that were off. Have a look at this. He's actually just gone, cars has gone dead straight, didn't even stop, just whammo, straight into the fence. So something pretty catastrophic has happened there, and he was well off the line, and yeah, retired pretty damn quickly. So
that's probably the biggest hit I think we've seen in Gen 3, because you're doing a pretty good job to knock one wheel off of a supercar on a given day. To have taken 2 off, yeah, that's a pretty hefty hit. So to a degree, I would hope that was a hardware issue, because if not, that's a pretty significant throwing in of the towel.
Yeah,
but
sorry, I actually...
Ben is the sort of person that I wouldn't expect to be the sort of person that would do that. So
sorry, there actually was a slight issue getting the replay to come up on the broadcast. I'm not sure what's happened there. We actually will go back and just rewind the camera so we can actually show that properly, so everybody can actually see what happened. So yes, now we will cut to the replay. Apologies for everybody. It's a long day. Let's just put it that way. It's a long race for everybody, commentators included. Here we go, finally into turn number 1, and yeah, car just did not slow down, and it basically hit the wall with, yeah, it's either one or two things, Rody, I agree with you. It's either a catastrophic failure of some nature, or it is, yeah, not the best way to throw in the towel, let's put it that way.
Yeah, it probably goes, I think, back to the, I can recall, it would have actually, I think it was Lewis's last race here, actually, I can recall, I think it was practice or qualifying,
I'm pretty sure Sydney Motorsport Park was that one.
No, so last race here, by meaning last race in the league, in these cars, sorry. But yeah, I can recall a pretty, there would have been like a confetti explosion of tyres if those tyres were there IRL.
Yeah, and it actually is something that's in the rules as well around the sportsmanship of things like that. You know, you typically don't do those sorts of things if you're intentionally throwing in the towel. You pull over somewhere, you retire, or you actually go into the pits and retire, like we've seen on a couple of occasions people do, like Luke Newing, I think it was Daniel Cox last time out at Monza when he was involved in a couple of first corner incidents and just decided, no, it's something's not quite right, I'm going to pull the head in. So yeah, some of those ones. Just getting his message in the chat there as well. It is a catastrophic failure by the sound of it. Wheelbase cracking the sads for Ben Hall. So let's see how that ends up. Margin actually coming down out in front while we've been looking at the replays and all of this as well. So 4.5 seconds the margin, but Devonish is now catching up to the back of his two, one of them his teammate and the other one his crosstown stablemate, and they've, I don't know, I was about to say I thought they might have been trying to let him go through there. Igmanis certainly is, he's letting him go through. And then Rutledge has just gone through and picked up a spot there and said, thank you very much, I'll have that. And then I imagine he'll be through in a flash up the back chute here. Will Devonish, it'll be one of those pretty straightforward passes. There'll be some communication between the garages and it'll be over and done with pretty quickly. And here it comes. And this actually gives you a bit of an illustration as well, because not only has Devonish has been gaining on Stenberg as well, but even Rutledge has been picking up the pace as well. But even though he's a lap down at the moment to the two leaders, his pace on these tyres is actually a little bit better than the leading. I've just got to look there on the time. You see Stenberg's last lap was at 9.6, and Rutledge's even just did have to back out of it a little bit, but even his times have not been too bad, all things considered. Now we actually will get the proper understanding of how much he can quickly reel in the number one. And with 60 laps, 59 laps completed for some of the lap runners and for 60 laps completed for the race leaders, now we start to try and work out, Rody, there's a bit of logic here around how it all comes to be and where it all unfolds. Now, a bit further back, while that's going on, Noah Turra has come across Lewis Wedding, and this is the battle for 4th and 5th place. So Wedding, oh, there's a bit of a moment there for the two of them. I'm not sure if that was the rear end getting away from the Camaro as Turra came along to try and lap him, or if there was a little bit of incidental contact with the passes there. That's not a passing zone there. We've seen that happen a few too many times before. There was one in improved production there that went horribly wrong last weekend. Turn 4, usually not a mooted passing zone unless it's lap traffic scenario. So for Noah Turra, he's trying to execute a 4-stop strategy here as well. And he needs to get a wriggle on, and he needs to pass Wedding pretty quickly, who's now put the parachute out and just said, nope, we're going to slow things down a little bit here because I want to hang on to 4th place, and I reckon there's a bit of contact there, and that sent the 666 wide at turn number 9. And, well, I think the defensive move was there. Wedding telegraphed it pretty early that he was going to defend that spot, and I think there might have been a little bit of contact down there. The Paint Doctor replay will definitely tell us all we need to know.
Oh, I've just seen as well, actually, Stenberg and Foley both in for their last stops.
All right, so here we go. So that's a bit early. Yep, there it is. There's a little bit of a contact there on the rear bumper. Pretty obvious there for Noah Turra. And he goes through into P4, and wouldn't be surprised to see that one going through. So that puts Devonish through to first, Turra to second, Wedding is third, but as you just rightfully called out, Rody, the Foley and Stenberg have come in to take their final stops in the lane, and Stenberg is out and he is gone. So he's saved whatever fuel he can in that stint, as well as trying to make that work, and Foley's come out behind him on the road. He's actually got a mile. Have a look at that. There is a plethora of real estate between the two Camaros, and for Foley, he's going to have to really hustle butt here, I think, is to politely put it, to really feature in the top 5.
I think looking at it, Foley is actually now in a position where he might be at risk from Noah Turra at the end of this.
He's actually at risk of going a lap down to Will Devonish if he's not careful, but he's got fresher tyres. So that's the important thing. So there's the race leader behind him on the track, who's probably due in a couple of laps' time, I would say. I think I was predicting around about lap 67 was the stopping time for him. So he's going to be on some shorter tyres. Wedding is in the lane now as well. So that clears the slate. So all the 4-stop runners have the 3 4-stop runners have gone through. So that's Devonish, Tara, and Murrell. McDonald, who we believe is on the 3-stop strategy, is still glued to the tail of Scott Murrell. So good, healthy point score for these guys at the moment in the team's championship fight. And Luke Speck, who we believe is on a 3-stop strategy as well, he's in 5th place, but I don't believe he's taken his 3rd and final stop yet. He's probably not too far away from doing so, because Stenberg's right behind him, and I think is probably going to have to try and round him up pretty damn quickly. Here comes the number 1 into turn number 6. There is the number 13 directly ahead. And this pass, if it's something for the race lead, he's going to have to be executed, and executed pretty soon.
Yeah, he is in still position. Well, it's one of those things. I think he's still going to come out ahead of Devonish, but he's going to have as much breathing room as possible. Stenberg also is going to want to make use of these tyres. He's going to be at a worse stage of tyre by the end of this race than Devonish and Tara and the like of those guys will. So he's going to try and push forward. Specs very much in his own little battle, as we mentioned, and Wedding just into the lane.
No, that's track strikes. No? That's track strikes for Lewis Wedding. I'm almost positive of it. Yes, it is. Yep. It's at turn number 6 and 7 is where he's been done for that. So that's a tour of the lane for the 666. So out of lives, and actually again, then I just saw it then at turn number 10. So frustration kicking in there for the PBF Renstall cars, and both of them actually into the lane. That's Wedding for the penalty and Steve Warwick for the stop. So it's just a trundle through the lane here to get that done. So that's they were afforded a few extra lives, and they've all been tacked up, unfortunately, there. So I think I think it was 6, and you were on a final warning. And then the 7th one, you toured the lane. So that's where I believe is what the setting was all night long. And Lewis Wedding's the first one to unfortunately be adjudged by the stewards to be shown the black flag.
Yeah, you need to drop right to the back of this, because you've got one more to serve as well from that run through the last couple of corners. So he's in a he's still a lap ahead of his next place driver, which is actually his teammate. He will still maintain a lead over Steve Warwick, but he will lose, he will drop probably. We might even be risking another lap down. That said, we are still waiting on the race leaders to pit as well.
That's right. No, it's a bit of a shame there, because it was going quite well for him throughout that the first three quarters of that race, and it's just gone a little bit away at the wrong time there. So I'm sure there'll be a bit more to say about that one afterwards. They're just keeping an eye on the margin here, Devonish to Stenberg. It was just over 47 seconds. It was 47.3. It's now down to 46.8. So this is where the tyre delta is now starting to come into effect. The older tyres on the number 15 and the newer tyres on the number 1. That will then flip around the other way when Devonish gets into the lane, but the tyre offset's not going to be as great as it has been. So Stenberg will have some, about 4 or 5 lap older tyres. It won't be as huge as some of the other ones that we've seen with the 3 and 4 stop strategy in play. Now, I called out and said it was going to be about lap 67. I was expecting Devonish to come in. It's lap 66, so I wasn't far off with the mathematics. So in comes the race leader. Now we get the true indication of what's going to happen. Noah Turra is the next man on the road. Is he going to go a lap longer, or is he going to come in here as well? And then what about Scott Murrell, because he's due in around about the same time as well. Oh, Turra backs it into the corner there. That made the car just wander a little bit past the apex. Yep, Turra in as well. So that's him in. And now what about Scott Murrell? Waiting on the number 6 to come in. And he is coming around the final corner now. Devonish is actually on the move. Murrell's going to go around again. Stenberg's actually nowhere in sight. He was actually the final corner, so that convergence we thought might have actually happened hasn't quite come off. So Stenberg, and he's going to be 3rd on the road here, ahead of Noah Turra, as Murrell goes to the lead of the race temporarily, I would say, ahead of Will Devonish. That move has just taken place because Murrell's gone around for an extra lap, and he is due to stop again. So So not a bad idea to try the 3-stop strategy, but it just needed to execute in such a way. For Stenberg, it will vault him up to a net second place on the road, well clear of Tara, well clear of Brent Foley. Now the next question is, has he got anything in store for Devonish over the last, the last 15 or so laps of this race?
Well, yeah, Stenberg on paper has been the fastest car this race, but the difference is pretty minuscule. It's less than a tenth of a second that separate the fastest laps of Kurt Stenberg and Will Devonish. He's going to have to get his skates on and probably hope that inadvertently Murrell's out of picture now.
Yeah.
At this point, I think the only other hope he's going to have is potential lap traffic, but outside of people pitting, I'm not sure who that's going to be.
No, we'll wait and see how all this shakes out. Now we're getting the true read on everything as it sits along the way. So Will Devonish, leader of the race, has completed all the stops. So too has Kurt Stenberg. He's completed all the stops that he needs to complete. 4 stops for the leader, 3 stops for the man in second place. Now we're waiting to see what happens to the third place man, which just so happens now to be Brent Foley, who has gone back through to third. Noah Turra will inherit 4th place. He's gone through. Now, the big one, Scott Murrell versus Damon McDonald. It's gone to Damon McDonald. So McDonald having stopped now for his 3rd stop versus Murrell's 4th. That has now flipped around the other way. So McDonald finally ahead of the sister car here. He gets that done through the pit stop strategy. The next question is Murrell going to be able to chase the 59 down and make a fist of it? If he's going to do that, he's also got to get through Mitchell Steele-Allison, who's done all of his stops as well. So Murrell's on the freshest tyres of anybody here, and if he wants, I think 5th place on the road, he's going to have to mow down 2 other Mustangs to get it.
He is, yeah. So a bit of a challenge up for some of the guys. Now that, yeah, I think at this point, most of the runners, at least most of the runners in the 10, have done their final stops. So we are now seeing an indication of where this race has played out. It turns out most of my math so far has been wrong. The one bit I am kind of on the money for, though, who is starting to play it out, is the difference in fastest lap between Noah Turra and Brenton Foley is about 3.5 tenths of a second as Brennan Ross picks up. I'm not sure if that was, I think that would be a track cut for his last track cut. So unfortunately for Rossi, he's also going to tour the lane now. But Turra still potentially in the position where he could do something to Foley here for 3rd.
Yeah, so we're going to keep an eye on, the margin between Foley and Turra, which is about 5 seconds. And then we're going to keep an eye on what's happening with Murrell versus Steele-Allison and then versus McDonald if he's got anything in store. Murrell's actually closed this margin down already to Steele-Allison, so this is something to keep an eye from here. He was a full 0.6 of a second quicker last time around alone. So he's going to be, he's going to be like a rabid dog here, just absolutely tearing strips off that car, trying to wring its neck for all it's worth and catch up to the back of the number 24, which he is doing, and doing very, very quickly. Go on board here, heading into the final couple of corners. A little bit more curb there as well, so maybe Murrell's got a couple of extra lives to play with. So much more corner speed that he's taken through there as well, pulling 4th. 5th gear comes up now. 6th gear will be just past the pit exit there. There it goes. And look at the big speed difference. And Murrell sweeps to the outside. Will he get this done on the outside, or Steele-Allison hangs it in there for as long as he possibly can? But so much more grip, so much more commitment. And through goes Scott Murrell into 6th place. That was a very, very committed pass around the outside at turn 1. Well, now his teammate, or his indirect teammate, is the next one he needs to catch up to, and the margin there stands at around 4 seconds.
Yeah, so that lap as well for Scott Murrell was his PB for the race as well, that he put in to try and get himself past Mitchell Steele-Allison. So I'm not sure if Allison's got too much to compete with on that. His best is a 9 flat as opposed to the 8.3 that Murrell just said. It is enough that given infinite time he would be catching McDonald. His best is an 8.4. The way it sits right now, it's an 8.3 last lap through versus an 8.9, but he's going to make up about 3.5 seconds. He could. It's going to come close.
Yep, that certainly will. The other battle that you were interested in watching was this one here. So Brenton Foley versus Noah Turra. Now for Turra, he's actually got two cars to get past in the process. He's got Lewis Wedding and he's got Brendan Ross. It's funny how the two Pixel Motorsport teammates, former Pixel Motorsport teammates, I should say, have found each other in all this little sequence. They're having their own little battle just up here, just ahead of them. And they've quickly fallen back into line. Both have had to two in the lane for black flag infringements with the penalties. Here, so Turra's got that margin to Foley down to 3.3 seconds, so he's very quickly reeling off the laps here, reeling off the fast times. Foley at 9.4 last time around, starting to feel a little bit weary, I would say, across the line, and just waiting for the times to update. Yeah, 9.4 for Foley, and Turra across the line that time around was an 8.4, so that's a full second gone in the brink of a lap.
Yeah, the one thing that might play into it now is just the luck that he's caught them is, I know Ross is probably slightly concerned about, you know, what matters for PBF. Lewis, less so, I think he just took an empty car. But these two are going to race each other on track. They said Lewis has had a pretty poor run. Another thing that probably didn't help Turra as well is that the last time he was around Lewis, he did have him off at turn 9. So, you know, it's probably possible that Lewis was going to remember that. But yeah, these two don't have. I mean, by all means, under blue flag, you've got to let the faster car through. And Ross is actually. Left the rolled out the red carpet there. He kind of did. He kind of didn't. He ran wide, and he could have just given it up, but he didn't. He kind of stuck with it because he's also worried about his battle with Wedding. But in the end, they could have probably, without impeding, they could have, you know, made things a little harder for Turra than they did. As you can see, he's got clean air now, Turra. That won't be a fast lap for him. It was a 9.9 the last time through, which compares to a 9.6 for Foley. So a little bit of reprieve for Foley there that last lap. But now that he's in clean air, he can get back to doing what he did the last time through, which was a second quicker. He's got 8 laps to try and make up 3 seconds at what's been possibly, you know, a second quicker per lap. Foley's going to have to put the extenders out and make that Camaro as wide as possible. Yeah, it certainly is. So Turra's now taking off as we were watching there, see if the battle between Ross and Wedding got a bit closer again. But note the CRE number, Amped Up Racing number 26, has cleared them and setting sail here, margin down to 3 seconds between the two of them. So that will get interesting. That's a couple of tenths a lap between now and the end of the race. It's good to see a couple of drivers have managed to sort themselves out in amongst all of this as well. The first of the lead lap runners, the lap runners, Daniel Cox, has actually made himself up into the top 10. He's actually gotten ahead of Cam Rutledge in all the pit stop sequences here now as well. Even though Lockie Lock at one stage was a bit further down the order, he's now found himself back up to 9th. He's probably not that far off being lapped by the race leader as well. So if we look up where he is, he's down at turn number 9, and he's just run a little bit wide there. And yeah, there, you know, I was about to say, you're absolutely right. There's the race leader directly behind him. So he'll be trying to start in the lead lap here, but I don't think it'll be for too much longer, because the number 15 behind is a very, very fast race car, and it will only be a matter of time before all that unfolds. Let's what's happening in the inter-team battle. The big one that we've been talking about, whether McDonald is actually going to be able to hold off Scott Murrell. This margin is slowly coming down. So it was actually Murrell last time was awarded a track violation, so he didn't register a lap time at all. Having a look at the lap times this time around, Murrell's we've got here, he is a full 0.5 of a second quicker in sector 1 alone. It was pretty even through sector 2, and we'll wait and get a read on the times as they come across the line here. So you can see McDonald will be across, and he'll do a time registering in, it was a 9.6, and then for Murrell, he absolutely has reeled off a Mozza there. He's done an 8.5 on the last lap, so that margin now down to 1.7 seconds. So that battle is going to go to the flag there. That will be a
a very, very tasty one between the teammates. For the whole race, it's been a case of McDonald's been playing second fiddle to Murrell. He has been stalking him effectively most of the race, however the strategy's panned out. Now the shoe's on the other foot. And I tell you what, if I was Dane McDonald, I'd be a little bit worried about just how quick that driver is behind him.
Yeah, the one thing that those guys won't know is that of the last few laps, Scott Murrell's been the second fastest car on track. The only car faster has been Will Devonish. He's quicker than Stenberg, he's quicker than Foley, he's quicker than Tara. He's been booking along there, has Murrell, which echoes Higginson's comments in the chat of look at the mumbo. Yeah, he's strapped that in. There's the advantage that you've got for running the four-stop strategy is that you have essentially you can almost give yourself almost a qualifying car at the end of the race. And given the times these guys are doing, you know, they're pushing, you know, at Murrell's case, he's that last lap through pushing down to a 9 flat. He's pushing the direction of 8, so that won't help him. But he's not doing the 8.3s he did earlier, but he's setting some very quick laps at the end of this, and everybody ahead of him, more or less, is having to conserve tyres in some way. It's almost a shame the race wasn't longer than it was, but I know that if the race was longer than it was, strategies would have gone different ways. But the way things are looking, yeah, McDonald's got, well, actually the gaps are coming down on both arguments. It's, what is it now? It's half a second between Foley and Tara.
Yep.
It's a second and a half between McDonald and Murrell. I think both of them are definitely at risk coming into the back end of this race.
Well, Brent Foley made a mistake on the last lap at turn 3 and gave the fence a rub on the outside, and that halved the margin that was there in the first place. So he's going to have to fight hard to hold on to P3 here. There's got 5 laps to go, and I don't think he's going to hold on to position number 3 without a huge fight, and that's not going to help his cause either with another locked brake going into turn number 1. That's about the second or third time tonight we've caught him do something like that. Tara's not going to go for the jugular here down at turn number 4. You don't risk it in this situation. Oh, a big slide job for Foley, and that's going to hamper his run off of turn number 4. He'll be on the inside, but there's going to be a lot more poke in a straight line now coming out of turn number 4 for Tara. He's got some slightly fresher rubber as well. He might try and sweep around the outside. No. Tucks back in, thinks better, tries to get the apex. Maybe down the crisscross here at turn 10. No, defended by Foley. But now this is where, if you've got a tyre advantage, you try and use it. In the traction zone, get the purchase out of there. Flick to the inside. Nope, Foley covers that one as well. Makes it difficult for Tara. So this is not over. Foley is prepared to fight here with 4 to go.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a justifiable thing to try and with 4 laps to go, try and make a fight of it. He's going to have to back Tara off by, you know, essentially the second a lap on what he was otherwise doing. Tara pretty well alongside there, though, and was able to keep the door open. Foley's got a chance to fight back here, but it's a pretty big
contact.
dive.
Yep, and that sends
big dive.
big dive, and that sends Tara off through the grass. But he was already ahead at that point, so there's no situation there where it would warrant him having to give that position back. He was already ahead before the contact was made and had to surf out the other side. So it did give Tara a track violation for that as well, because he had to tour the grass. But he is through to position number 3. So that, ball barring a mistake, that will settle the top 3 for the race. Let's have a look here, because Murrell has now gotten into a reasonable slipstream range of his teammate, Damon McDonald, and they're coming up to the Lewis Wedding and Brendan Ross train. So this will now be interesting, because these drivers have got 3 laps to go as they cross the line this time around. And as you said, Murrell has just, at one stage or another in this final stint, he has been the second fastest car on the track. He's got the bit between the teeth. He's got a lot of, he gets such a good run out of that final corner and just really motors up to the back of the car in front. But just by the time he gets there, he needs to be super deep under brakes like this and try and pull the trigger. He's going to be able to stop it. He somehow manages to make the apex of the corner, uses all the available curb on the outside, and floats the car through into position number 5. Has McDonald got a response? He might have, because Murrell's had a poor exit out of 4.
That, and they're both going to the point now where I think they're at risk of catching the 2 cars in front as they get up to the 6, 7, 8, 9 complex, which is a really sketchy place to try and pass cars, let alone 2 that are battling.
No, that's right. So up now here, McDonald actually backs out of it a little bit of a lock break for Murrell there. They're all very wide. That's Lewis Wedding who's gone wide there. Brendan Ross went wide as well and cleaned up the signage. Was there some contact between the two of them?
There was, yeah. There were 2 wide coming into turn 6, turn 7, and it was just a front wheel that just fired Ross wide. Wedding's done a good job and redressed that, but it's actually taken a lot of the sting out of what would otherwise being a bit of a challenge of trying to get past the lap cars. But still would have been pretty sketchy for Murrell coming around turn 6, turn 7 and seeing 2 cars off on the grass.
Have a look at this. So they were in their own little battle here, up into turn number 6. Who gave way, who didn't? They gave each other a fair bit of room there. Oh, Wedding just wanted a little... The car just understeered mid-corner wide, and that's what sent the pair of them off. And then through the 2 of them came. Tell you what, you would have had your heart in your mouth if you were piloting one of the 2 lead lap cars behind with that, not knowing what the outcome was going to be on the other side.
Absolutely, yeah. So good and ultimately for Murrell. I think I was almost worried with him trying to get ahead of McDonald before that happened, that maybe he would have been the first one to catch a stray car. But as it's worked out, he's been able to get through, and at this point he's still got clear bit of tyre life to go. I think McDonald, he needed to be within half a second to really put much of a fight to him, but he's starting to slip back now, and I don't think he's got much tyres. I don't think he really got any tyre to really compete with what Murrell's sitting on right now.
No, certainly hasn't. Well, leader has taken the last lap, and it is a 19-second margin, nearly 20-second margin now actually for Will Devonish. Has took the pole, fell a little bit behind at the start there. Noatara took the ascendancy. Didn't take too long to get back to the lead of this race, but he's had the fastest car all night long. And after 81 laps, the championship leader extends the margin even further out in front. It might be his year. 9 races down, 300 championship points in the bag for Will Devonish. Great drive from the rear from Kurt Stenberg. What a drive from him. 16 spots gained up to position number 2. If only qualifying had gone a little bit better for him, and not that little moment where he was out of the server when I don't think he realised he was. So he comes home P2. Noatara has to settle for P3. Just didn't quite have the car underneath him today to really challenge for the win there, but a good 3rd place. Brent Foley in 4th. It was looking like he might have been on the podium at one stage. He just couldn't hold on for long enough at the back end of the race. A few too many mistakes there. 5th for Murrell, so he redeems his bad performance in the shootout up from 10th to 5th. With McDonald home in 6th, so good solid points for Luke McHugh Racing. Mitchell Steele-Allison's just going to beat home Luke Speck here as well, so 7th for Steele and 8th for Speck. And then at the end of that, 9th for Locke and a top 10 for Daniel Cox. And the last of those that still finished the race, Cam Rutledge, Curtis McManus, Lewis Wedding, Brendan Ross and Steve Warwick. They were the 15 that finished. We lost Ben Hall due to an accident. Dostal looks like it was some sort of a failure of some nature, and Luke Ewing was in retirement during the pit stop sequence. So bit of an interesting strategy one there, Rhodey. The 3-stop versus the 4-stop. Very nearly worked out for Kurt Stenberg, but just came up with a little bit of I guess coming from the rear of the grid was always going to be the challenge, and maybe that's probably what did the damage at the end of the day. Worth trying it, but just didn't work out.
Oh, it was, yeah. And probably ultimately, having to make up that really when they get going into the 20-odd seconds. I mean, that's the gap from 1st to 2nd. So maybe that would have been the differentiating factor for him. Sort of the same thing where. Actually, no. I mean, Foley actually had the upper edge of the ascendancy over Tara at the start. No, he didn't actually, because Tara was 2nd. So I don't know if things had rolled a little different way, and Tara had been put in that really sort of quiet, fast lap he did. Maybe it could have gone the other way for those 2 as well. But to be fair, part of what plays into all this at any time is the luck around traffic, the luck around pit stops, the luck around a safety car. So that's very much played into this for the drivers as well. But Look, it was. I suppose, if nothing else, I'm happy to see that somebody tried a different strategy and managed to make it work. Because I feel that if Stenberg had just run the same strategy as Will, the result would have been the same. If not, he would have been behind the likes of Noah Turra.
No, you're absolutely right.
So I think there was an advantage to be gained in running the three stop. You just had to do it right. And Stenberg was one that I'd argue at least did it the most correct. It's just that he had a 20 odd second gap about 10-second gap, I think, actually, by the time things got going. But he had a margin already that he had to overcome that definitely made it a harder fight than it had to be.
Yeah, certainly there. Well, given the time constraints we are under with some of these things, Rady, I'll leave it up to you to decide whether you would like to have a chat with our top three or any others for tonight. But it's been quite the job, I think. The better part of an hour and 30 minutes, or north of an hour and 30 minutes worth of racing. I think they probably all might deserve a bit of a break tonight, based on what we've just seen.
Yeah, look, I will say to the guys, I know the few that would have been chasing for an interview, but given the time constraints and given that the man opposite me has to be out of bed in about 4 or 5 hours' time, just for this one, we will be ending the broadcast without any interviews. A good chance the guys we talked to, I will get a chance to talk to them next round at the Bend, and I know a few guys will be looking forward to it, a few guys maybe not. So it is a bit of a divisive track, the Bend. But we will be leaving it there, unfortunately, just with where time constraints are at. But I know both the guys are pretty pooped, and to be honest, I'm a little bit pooped after that one as well. It's a long race, 81 laps, probably more so as a driver, but even as a commentator, having to keep up coherent thoughts for near on coming up to 3 hours. It gets to you sometimes.
Yeah, it certainly does. No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Rody, as always, for your assistance here. Also, big thank you to all the drivers that turned up tonight. It's definitely a long effort, and of course, we've got another one of these coming up a bit later on in the season. We've got 3 more rounds to go. So as you said, the Bend is next up, September 19th. So that one's going to fast approach. That's actually an alternate layout. It's the more normal international layout that Supercars race on. We've raced at the West Circuit for a couple of seasons now for some sprint racing. We're going to ratchet it up a notch with the final sprint round of the season. We're going to take the longer circuit. That's the last of the mandatory soft tyre rounds. Then it's a bit of a gap. It's actually a month wait because we do take a bit of time off for the real life Bathurst 1000, and then we do the Bathurst 300. That's on October 17th. So that's another one of these mini enduros with so it's 49 lap race, the top 10 shootout, and all goes along with that. That's a hard tyre round, and then we round out the season. One of the earliest finishes to the calendar season on November 7th, which as the Adelaide Parkland Circuit, a pair of races there, and that one is an open tyre compound situation, but you must use both compounds. So 3 different types of races to go, or rounds to go, to close out the season. We're 3/4 of the way there now, and we will see you in a couple of weeks for the Bend. Take care, everybody, and we'll speak to you next time. Bye for now.